Okay. Do you want to give me a countdown or should I just launch in, Katrina?
I'm good if you just launch in.
Okay, great. So I will now call the public hearing of July 13th, 2021 to order. Council, for the purposes of confirming we have quorum, please ensure your video is turned on. And to ensure that quorum is maintained throughout the meeting, please let the clerk know if you leave the meeting. This meeting will be convened by electronic means as authorized under the order of the Minister of Public Safety and Solicitor General of the Province of BC, Emergency Program Act, updated Ministerial Order number M192. As such, council members are participating by phone, and as chair of this meeting, I'm also participating by phone. Please note, if my connection is lost during any portion of this meeting, we will recess the meeting until my connection is restored. If council loses connection during any portion of the public hearing, we'll need to recess the meeting until the connection is restored. If council loses connection during the voting process, we'll have staff on hand to facilitate getting you back online quickly while we suspend the voting process. The contact information for council has been circulated to you. Members of the public can view the proceedings via the live stream and YouTube link, which will be tweeted out by @VanCityClerk. Videos of council members speaking, presentations, amendments, and vote results will be projected to viewers when available. We acknowledge that we're on the unceded and traditional territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations. We thank them for having cared for this land and look forward to working with them in partnership as we continue to build this great city together. And I'd also like to take a moment to recognize the immense contributions of the City of Vancouver staff who work hard every day to make our city an incredible place to live, work, and play. Clerk, may we have the roll call?
Mayor Stewart is on sick leave. Councillor Carr?
Here.
Councillor DiGenova? Councillor DiGenova is not on. Councillor Fry?
Here.
Councillor Swanson?
Here.
Councillor Hardwick?
Present.
Councillor Wiebe?
Present.
Councillor or Deputy Mayor Boyle is in the chair. Councillor Dominato?
Present.
Councillor Bly?
Present.
And Councillor Kirby-Yung? Not on the line. Oh, I see you now, Councillor DiGenova. You have quorum, Deputy Mayor Boyle.
Thank you, Clerk. Before we begin, I have some announcements. Following updated guidance issued on June 30th, 2021, there's a maximum allowable capacity for public in-person participation permitted in the council chambers for local government meetings and public hearings under the Public Health Officer Order on Gatherings and Events. The public may participate by speaking in person, by phone, or by submitting written comments to Mayor and Council. Virtual participation is highly encouraged as there are capacity limits within City Hall. Speakers will have 5 minutes to make their comments and should limit their comments to the merits of the report being considered. Speakers should also state whether they are in support or opposed to the recommendations and if they are a resident of Vancouver. Speakers may only speak once and should follow along on Twitter @VanCityClerk for updates on the progress of the meeting so they don't miss their turn to speak. Any comments on agenda items can be submitted in writing through the online web form at vancouver.ca/public-hearing-comments, and this link will also be tweeted. Those speaking on behalf of other persons or groups will have 8 minutes to speak, and only if those represented are also present or on the line and must not be speakers themselves. Speakers who pre-registered with presentations are reminded that the public live feed has a slight delay. To navigate through the slides of your presentation, please say next. I also want to note that the City of Vancouver's long-standing commitment to equity, diversity, and inclusion, including utmost respect for all genders. I remind Council that when addressing speakers and staff, we will avoid using gendered honorifics and will instead refer to the person by first and last name, role, or title. A reminder that Council's role at a public hearing is to be a quasi-judicial body, which means Council is only to consider the merits of the rezoning application or heritage designation. Council members may ask clarifying questions from speakers, including the applicant, or technical advice from staff, but should save debate for after the close of the speakers list. After hearing from speakers, council may 1, approve the application in principle, 2, refuse the application, or 3, refer the application to staff for further consideration. And finally, if council does not conclude hearing from all speakers this evening, we will recess and reconvene the meeting on Wednesday, July 14th at 6 p.m. Our first item up is miscellaneous amendments concerning various CD1 bylaws. Does any member of council wish to declare conflict of interest on item number 1? I don't see any, so the clerk will now read the application and summary of correspondence received.
This is an application by the General Manager of Planning, Urban Design and Sustainability to make miscellaneous amendments to the Zoning and Development Bylaw to improve clarity, update references, correct inadvertent errors or omissions, and improve the administration of the bylaws. No correspondence has been received to this application since referral to public hearing and prior to the close of the speakers list and receipt of public comments.
Thank you. If there are any speakers for this item who wish to speak to council, please call toll-free 1-833-353-8610, followed by participant code 1061445 ##. Before the close of the speakers list, close of the speakers list, the phone number will be tweeted out and made available on the live stream as well. We have Simon J., rezoning planner from the Rezoning Center in Planning, Urban Design and Sustainability, here to provide opening comments to the application.
Hi, Council. My name is Simon J., and I'm the rezoning planner for this item. Just checking you can hear me.
Yes, we can. Thanks so much.
So we have a verbal presentation prepared if Council would like to hear it.
I am seeing one nod. Is council interested in hearing this presentation? Great. We will go ahead. Thanks so much, Simon J.
Okay. From time to time, Council considers miscellaneous text amendments to provide greater clarity in zoning bylaws, to correct typographical or inadvertent errors, and to provide clear direction for the public and staff in the interpretation of bylaws. This report recommends miscellaneous CD1 text amendments to CD1 312, CD1 590, and CD1 745. CD1 312 for 510 Nicholas Street and 1506 to 1590 Cole Harbour Quay was rezoned under the Cole Harbour Official Development Plan and was enacted in 1993. The site is built out and occupied. The rezoning permitted mixed-use zoning, including strata residential and commercial uses. The CD1 bylaw is split into 5 sub-areas. In sub-area 2 and 3, along the waterfront, commercial uses are limited to retail and service uses. However, subsequent rezoning bylaws for adjacent sites permit office use in waterfront commercial units and currently include office tenancies. The amendment will rectify the inconsistency and allow the same commercial use provisions by allowing office use in sub-areas 2 and 3. The amendment would create flexibility for land use approvals within existing commercial spaces while maintaining an active and diverse urban waterfront. It does not affect the form of development approved in principle by Council. CD1 590 for 4055 Canby Street was rezoned under the Canby Corridor Plan and was enacted in 2014. The site is built out and occupied. The rezoning permitted an 8-story mixed-use development with commercial uses at grade and 65 strata residential units. The approved bylaw applies a range of use limitations to the commercial units. The amendment would remove a number of these limitations to accommodate a wider range of business types and to support the viability of these commercial units. Any uses that are considered to be incompatible with the site would not be approved through the rezoning, through the development permit or business licensing processes. The amendment will make the CD1 bylaw consistent with recently approved rezonings and does not affect form of development approved in principle by Council. Finally, CD1 745 for 686 to 688 East 22nd Avenue, 3811 to 3891 Fraser Street, and 679 East 23rd Avenue was rezoned under the Affordable Housing Choices Interim Rezoning Policy, was enacted in 2020 and is currently under construction. The rezoning permitted a 6-story mixed-use development with commercial uses at grade and 121 secured market rental housing units. The rezoning for the site changed from RT2 to CD1. However, the Schedule A map in the CD1 bylaw is labeled from RS1 to CD1. This amendment corrects the error, deleting the Schedule A and replacing it with a new Schedule A labeled from RT2 to CD1. The map itself is unchanged. So that's the end of our verbal presentation. Staff are available to answer questions.
Thank you very much. Council, are there any questions from council to staff? If so, please add your name to the list.
Based on this, happy to move the recommendations.
Okay, we have a speaker, so let's just
Sorry about that.
No problem. We'll now hear from members of the public. If there are any speakers for this item who wish to speak to council, please call toll-free 1-833-353-8610, followed by participant code 106-1445#, before the close of the speakers list. The following phone number will be tweeted out and made available on the live stream too. We do have speakers signed up for this item. Our first speaker is Alan Boniface. Do we have Alan Boniface on the line?
Chair, Alan is not on the line.
Okay. And that was the only registered speaker I have signed up, so I will call 3 times for additional speakers. If there are any additional speakers for this item who wish to speak to council, please call toll-free 1-833-353-8610, followed by participant code 106-1415#. The phone number will be tweeted out and made available on the live stream. That is my second call for speakers. Clerk, do we have anyone new on the line?
No speakers on the line, Chair.
Okay, I will make a third call for speakers, and then council will pause for 5 minutes to make sure we're giving time for any speakers who do wish to sign up. So my third call for speakers is if there are any additional speakers for this item who wish to speak to council, please call toll-free 1-833-353-8610, followed by participant code 106-1445#. And I'm going to suggest we take a 5-minute recess to see if any calls are received. It's 6:13, so we will come back at 6:18. Council. are back at 6:18, and I'm just going to check, clerk, do we have any additional speakers on the line?
No speakers, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Seeing there are no additional speakers, the speakers list is now closed. And as few or no public comments were received on this item after 5 p.m. tonight, I suggest we now close the receipt of public comments and move on to hearing closing comments, asking further questions of staff and making a decision. The applicant is the city, so I assume, do staff have any closing comments?
No, staff don't have any closing comments.
Okay, and does council have any questions for staff? Councillor DiGenova, I see your name on the list. Do you have questions for staff on this?
Trying to be efficient, I was on to move the recommendations. No questions from me.
Okay, great. Council can move on to make a decision. Councillor DiGenova moved, and I think I heard Councillor Hardwick seconded. Council, is there any debate on the item? I don't see any debate, so I will ask the clerk to move us to a vote. Clerk, I am just trying to remind myself how to vote myself on the Creston panel. Okay, Councillor Swanson, we're just waiting for your vote.
Chair Boyle, we ended the vote by accident. Could
Okay.
Councillor Swanson just
I
note
voted.
verbally,
I
and we can correct the record?
I'll take a vote assist in favor. I did vote, it just didn't show up.
We'll correct the record, Chair Boyle,
Okay, thank
to reflect
you.
in favor.
Thank you, clerk, and thank you, Councillor Swanson. And that item passes unanimously with Mayor Stewart absent. And that brings us to item 2 on the agenda for the evening. Item 2 is CD1 rezoning of 546 West 13th Avenue. Does any member of council wish to declare a conflict of interest on item 2? I don't see any there, so the clerk will now read the application and summary of correspondence received.
This is an application by Soroptimus International of Vancouver, BC to rezone 546 West 13th Avenue from RM3 Residential District to CD1 Comprehensive Development District to permit the development of a 13-story residential building with 135 social housing units, a height of 40 meters, and a floor space ratio of 6.05 are recommended. The General Manager of Planning, Urban Design, and Sustainability recommends approval, subject to the conditions set out in the summary and recommendations of the public hearing agenda. The following correspondence has been received since referral to public hearing and prior to the close of the speakers list and receipt of public comments. 39 pieces of correspondence in support, 12 pieces of correspondence in opposition, and 3 pieces of correspondence dealing with other aspects of the application. This represents all correspondence received up to 5 p.m. today.
Thank you very much. If there are any speakers for this item who wish to speak to council, please call toll-free 1-833-353-8610, followed by participant code 106-1445#. The phone number will be tweeted out and made available on the live stream. And we have Marcel Galen, rezoning planner from the Rezoning Center, Planning, Urban Design, and Sustainability, here to present the application.
Hi there, this is planning staff on the line. We actually can't share our screen just yet, so if that functionality could be enabled. by the clerks, that'd be fantastic.
Clerks, can I just confirm someone is working on that?
We have enabled.
Yep, it's been enabled. One sec.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I just wanted to confirm that you can see the presentation.
Yes, we can see the presentation on WebEx, and it appears to be on the public screen as well. So please
Okay.
go ahead. Thanks.
Great, thanks. Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Marcel Jeline, rezoning planner for this application at 546 West 13th Avenue by Seroptimus International of Vancouver. The site is located in the Fairview neighborhood on the south side of West 13th Avenue, half a block west of Cambie Street. The property and areas to the north, south, east, and west are zoned RM3, which permits a maximum density of approximately 1.0 FSR and building heights up to 120 feet. The surrounding context is predominantly older 3- and 4-story multiple dwellings, including a 13-story building directly north of the proposed site. The site is located under Protected Public View 3.1, originating from Queen Elizabeth Park, which limits height at this location to protect views of the North Shore Mountains. Comprised of 3 legal parcels, the site is just under 15,000 square feet with a frontage of 148 feet on West 13th and a depth of 95 feet. The property is currently developed with a 2-story social housing building for senior women and contains 21 studio and 1-bedroom units, all currently occupied. Seroptimus International of Vancouver has operated the building since its construction in 1960. According to the applicant, the building has deteriorated and requires significant repairs and upgrades, and replacement is needed. Each tenancy would be subject to the city's tenant relocation policy. The site is within a 12-minute walk of 8 parks, 12 childcare providers, BGH, Douglas Park Community Center, and SkyTrain. A range of commercial services exist, a 1 to 8 minute walk along Cambie and Broadway. The site is located in the catchment area of Edith Cavell Elementary and Eric Hamber Secondary. This application is being considered under the affordable housing policies, wherein rezonings can be considered under policies that advance affordable housing. The affordable housing policies recognizes the need for expanding affordable housing across all neighborhoods. The site is also impacted by the Queen Elizabeth View Cone, which guides the building height, massing, and form of development. The Broadway interim rezoning policy permits rezoning applications to be considered for projects involving social housing in the Broadway planning area. This proposal is to rezone the site from RM3 to CD1 for a 13-story residential building with 135 units of social housing intended for women, with an emphasis on seniors, single mothers and their children, and working women. The housing will be developed by Seroptimus, which is a registered charity and nonprofit society providing affordable housing for women. 35% of the units will be family units. A floor area of approximately 89,000 square feet, density of 6.05 FSR, and a height of 131 feet are recommended. The top of the building, including appurtenances, sit just under the lowest limit of view cone 3.1, which is approximately 133.5 feet. 2 levels of underground parking are proposed, including 41 vehicle and 250 bicycle spaces. The application was submitted to staff for review on December 1st, 2020 under the SHORT program. It has taken approximately 7.5 months to bring to public hearing. As part of the Restart Smart Vancouver initiative in response to COVID-19, this project will contribute to approximately 473 new on-site and off-site construction jobs during the initiative's recovery phase. Form of development regulatory drivers and considerations for this development can generally be summed up into 4 categories: council-approved public protected views, building width, massing, articulation, and public realm. As noted, development on the site is shaped by council-approved protected public view 3, Queen Elizabeth Park, which secures public access to views of the North Shore Mountains from the grounds of the Lodell Conservatory. The site in question falls within Subview 3.1, which acknowledges that views of the downtown skyline with the mountains as a backdrop form an important part of Vancouver's civic identity. Staff note that a total height of 131.2 feet, this development complies with the protected public view. The project meets the city's definition of social housing with a minimum of 30% of the units rented to households with incomes under the BC Housing Income Limits levels. The Society has been successful in securing the Community Housing Fund from BC Housing to create deeper levels of affordability, including 20% of the units at deep subsidy rates, 50% at Hills, and 30% at affordable market rents. All 21 of the units on site are currently tenanted. Current rent ranges from $450 to $800 per month. All tenants are covered by the tenant relocation plan for non-market housing, including securing a permanent rehousing option, maintaining affordability for existing residents, providing support for relocation and special circumstances, including moving expenses and compensation, ongoing communication and engagement with tenants, and the right of first refusal. A city-led virtual open house was held from February 22nd to March 14th, 2021. 504 unique visitors viewed the Shape Your City webpage, 209 reviewed multiple documents, and 92 engaged individuals submitted comment forms and questions. 133 submissions were received, including 110 comment forms, 21 questions, and 2 other pieces of input collected via email and telephone. Key themes of support included housing for women and children, site location, building density, height, and design. Key themes of concern including building height and density, privacy, sunlight, and views and parking on site. Members of the public raised concerns that the proposed density and height is out of scale with the residential neighborhood. Under the existing RM3 district schedule-based zoning for this area, towers up to 120 feet may be developed. The proposal is marginally taller by 11 feet. Further, there is an existing 13-story building across the street from the site, providing a similar scale within the area. Staff support additional density and height as a viable approach for the delivery of secured social housing. Recommendations in Appendix B will require strategic use of plantings to improve privacy and security. This proposal would shadow neighboring buildings to the north. However, it does not shadow any significant public spaces such as parks. Staff recognize the potential impact of development on views within the City of Vancouver and as applicable policy to protect public views. The site is located within a view cone that protects views from Queen Elizabeth Park to the North Shore Mountains. The development complies with height limits established by the view cone. The proposal will comply with the social housing provisions of parking bylaw, which reduces parking requirements to lower the overall project cost to support the delivery of new social housing. In summary, staff recommends approval of this application to rezone 546 West 13th Avenue from RM3 to CD1 subject to the conditions outlined in Appendix B, as it meets the intent of the Housing Vancouver strategy and affordable housing policies with respect to the delivery of social housing. If approved, the application would contribute 135 new social housing units to help reach the city's goals identified in the Housing Vancouver strategy. Staff and the applicant team are available to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Council, are there any questions from council to staff? I see Councillor Swanson up first. Go ahead, Councillor Swanson.
Yeah, I think this is a question for the applicant. I'm just wondering about the 21 tenants who are there now. Do you have a building for them all to go to? It seems like their rents are really, really low. It'd be nice if they could all go together. Moving seniors is bad for their health. So just wondering how that's working out.
Am I able to answer?
Yes, go ahead. And
this is Carla Bernardo speaking. We've hired an expert to help us with this, to do the relocation as a project as sort of separate from the whole build, so that we do look after the tenants, and we've kept them advised of all of the steps so that they're aware of what we're doing. We do not at this time have one building for them to move into, but we're working with Atira, who will be helping us relocate.
And is there a guarantee for them that they won't have to have their rents raised?
Yes, that's something that's part of the package, is that the rents will be similar, and I believe it is going to be our responsibility if we can't find exact rents that we will have to assist, and we're willing to.
You mean subsidize them?
Yes, yes.
So you're committed to doing that?
We've just started the process of the relocation, and that is part of our discussion. We're hoping that we can find very similar suites, and we do co-own a building right now that we are hoping to have some of the tenants move into.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Swanson. Actually, I'm just going to pause the questions. I apologize. The script I have was a little out of order, but usually we hear comments from the applicant as well, and then council can ask questions of both city staff or the applicant. So I wonder if the applicant has any comments to make before we go back to questions.
I do. I have. That actually broke the tension. Thank you. So Deputy Mayor and Council, I'm Carla Bernardo. I'm the Chair of the Redevelopment Committee for Soroptimist International of Vancouver for the site at 546 West 13th in Vancouver. I'm here with Carla Guerrera, the founder and CEO of Purpose Driven Development, and she will be the primary person responding to questions about our project tonight. We also have Amala Budar, our architect from GBL. So I've been a member of Soroptimist for 30 years and appreciate this opportunity to share a little bit about our organization and about our exciting project with you. Soroptimist International is a nonprofit global volunteer organization that improves the lives of women and girls by providing access to education and training to achieve economic empowerment. We are not a registered charity. I did hear that mentioned before. We are a nonprofit. Soroptimist means the best for women, and Soroptimists are women at their best, helping other women be their best. A Soroptimist knows that empowered women empower women. Soroptimist International is 100 years old this year. The Vancouver Club has been committed to improving the lives of women and girls locally and internationally since 1926. Our club was the first in Canada and is composed of business and professional women. So we unite to make a difference for women through programs, awards, projects, and now through our vision and mission to expand affordable housing with our mandate, Housing for Women by Women. So we've partnered with Vancouver-based and women-led developer, Purpose Driven Development, on this innovative redevelopment project that will bring 135 affordable rental homes to workforce women, senior women, and women-led families. We are working together on this innovative project to close the glaring gap in the housing needs of women by providing affordable housing that is designed, developed, and delivered by women. So in an industry primarily male-dominated, this project is the first of its kind in Canada to be delivering housing for women by an all-women team. The need for affordable housing for women is glaring. It is well demonstrated that women disproportionately face conditions and concerns that affect their ability to find secure and affordable housing due to their overrepresentation in low-wage work, an overall gender pay gap, and the impacts of gender-based violence. Women in our community are overrepresented in low-wage work and often face a choice between paying rent or putting food on the table. Mounting evidence shows that women with low income, I'm so excited. Women with low income have acute housing needs, are at greater risk of living in unsafe and unhealthy environments, and require improved access to stable and affordable housing. As stated in the Housing Vancouver strategy, women who are single mothers, seniors, disabled, and visible minorities have a higher level of poverty, have more difficult finding and affording housing, and are at a higher risk for homelessness. COVID-19 has only amplified the impact with related increase in gender-based violence and a resulting increased risk of homelessness. It is clear that challenges linked to COVID-19, that's me again, have worsened gender-based violence and have disproportionately disrupted service-based jobs. These factors have made it harder for women to find and keep safe, affordable housing. The need of this project has never been greater, and the project at 546 West 13th will help to close the glaring gap in the housing needs of women by providing affordable housing for women by women. Our project is focused on closing the gap in the housing needs of women in our city by providing affordable and long-term housing for senior women, single mothers and their children, and workforce women. Since these populations are at a higher risk of being underhoused, an increase of affordable, appropriate homes offered at a range of rents will expand equity for women and reduce barriers to accessing housing in our city. In addition, our team brings a gender-based approach to all key areas of design and development, delivering this critical housing for women by an interdisciplinary team of experienced industry-leading women. We are furthering the mandate of this project by demonstrating the outstanding leadership of women in male-dominated sectors, and we are the first development project in Canada to develop, deliver, and design the project with a team of highly qualified women across all disciplines in development, design, and construction. Currently, as mentioned, the site has the existing building with 21 units of housing for senior women. The building is aging with many issues for costly repairs and maintenance. It's the right time to do this redevelopment. We will rehouse the 21 existing tenants and provide 135 long-term affordable rental homes for workforce women, senior women, and women-led families. Located at a key central location in the city, the project is close to amenities, including shops and services, offices. It's adjacent to the hospital district. It's blocks away from schools and is located near multiple transit routes, including the Broadway City Hall station. The location will benefit women moving into the building who can then live and work centrally within the city. Preliminary funding for this project has come from BC Housing, Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation, Van City Community Foundation, and we have received preliminary approval for the city's Community Housing Incentive Program. Through the highly competitive BC Housing Community Housing Fund process, this project received funding and financing. This was one of only 49 projects in the province that received funding and financing, and this project was one of only 6 projects awarded the funding and financing in the Metro Vancouver region. We have received support from all levels of government, including CMHC, BC Housing, and city staff, and are now seeking your support for this project. Women are empowered when they have control over their lives, which includes housing. Holding a lease in their name empowers women economically, and this project will create housing options to fulfill the needs of the community by supporting women and their families in achieving financial independence and housing security. We are proud of the intentional and focused approach that we are taking with this project to deliver on a powerful mission of Soroptimist International of Vancouver to improve the lives of women and girls. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and sorry again for throwing off the order a little bit, but we will go back to questions from council now. Council, this is your chance to ask questions both of staff and the applicant. And Councillor Swanson, you still have some time if you have any additional questions.
I'm good, thanks.
Oh, okay, thanks so much, Councillor Swanson. Next up is Councillor Wiebe. Councillor Wiebe, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you very much. And this is an exciting project. A couple short questions. The first one is, you talked about being able to house people accessibility challenges and empower women that are facing different needs. I'm wondering how you look to incorporate that in the building.
Hi, Councillor Wiebe, it's Carla Guerrera here with Purpose Driven Development. We have definitely built accessibility into the building, and I can't, the exact percentage of number of units that are accessible, I might turn that exact percentage over to our architect, Amala, to respond to that.
Good evening. This is Amela Bruder speaking. Carla, I'm just trying to find the exact percent, but if looking at the plans, I would think that at least 10% of the units would be accessible. In addition to that, the entire building is accessible through the lobby, elevators to each of the suites, to each of the homes, plus all the amenity areas, the laundry rooms are fully accessible.
Okay, thank you very much. In the report, it does talk about the opportunity for an empowered woman amenity space on the roof as an option that I guess was brought forward from one of the comments. Was that something that's contemplated, and is that something that could be contemplated in the DP or BP stage?
Yes, thank you, Councillor. I'll speak to that. So we do have, we actually have reserved a significant portion of the indoor and outdoor roof space, which has quite lovely views of the city and the North Shore Mountains. We've reserved that space for the amenity space. So the indoor amenity space has a small sort of like yoga / meditation room. And then it also has another larger amenity space that would be for social gatherings, events, education. We're planning to do different kinds of education workshops for, finance or taxes or, health related workshops and education as well. And social gatherings in that indoor space. And then we also have quite a significant outdoor terrace space that you can see in some of the project renderings. That's also a shared space for the entire building. One of the things about this project that makes it very unique is we are bringing women together intergenerationally across different stages of life. And so the idea is, to create this inclusive community of support for women at different stages of life. And these amenity spaces, the indoor and the outdoor amenity spaces, are really they're very intentionally designed to support that community building within the building and the populations that we're targeting for this housing project.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Thanks, Councillor Wiebe. And next up are questions from Councillor Bly. Councillor Bly, go ahead.
Thanks very much, Chair. And yes, I agree. It's an exciting project to be discussing tonight. I just have a few questions. One, I just want to focus around the affordability. I think it's on page 11 of the report. And perhaps this is a question to the applicant. BC Housing's Community Housing Fund, would that change your ability to deliver more family units in terms of unit mix once you get confirmation, or if you get confirmation of that funding?
We have gotten confirmation of the community housing fund from BC Housing. I think as Carla mentioned, there were only 6 projects across Metro Vancouver that were awarded the funding. It was extremely competitive. And we were one of those projects. We were actually the largest project to receive funding across the province. So we are able to commit to those levels of affordability that we've mentioned. We did hear one comment from BC Housing that the middle income RGIs may have been calculated a little bit too low. So we will be looking to BC Housing to, come up with the right rents for that middle bracket, but they're not going to be too far off what we've got right now. Obviously,
okay, and the unit mix won't change though. That was my question, just to be really clear.
Yeah, no, the unit mix won't change. We
Okay.
have the certain amount of family larger units, and those will stay the same.
Okay, appreciate that. Actually, Councillor Swanson didn't ask this, so I must. Is it a pet-friendly building?
We have not made that determination yet.
Okay. I have a question for staff around the DCL waiver and just looking for context in terms of other applications or approvals by this council that are in that area that will be applying for a DCL waiver as well. My question is there a sense, just sort of checking the anticipated applications coming to council and how we can yeah, please go ahead.
Yardley McNeil, Assistant Director Planning for Rezoning. We don't have any other similar projects like this in the neighborhood. Just want to remind council that we're in the Broadway Plan study area as well, and all rezonings were held back unless they satisfied their interim rezoning policy, which basically said if you were proposing 100% social housing, you could proceed, or if you had had a prior letter of approval from an inquiry several years earlier. So we don't anticipate similar projects moving forward until the Broadway Plan is adopted by council, and at that point, a variety of projects would be submitted.
Okay, that's interesting. I appreciate that. I did have a question. I really do appreciate this sort of the way that this location is very central to parks and schools and groceries and what have you. And my experience of single mothers is that they're working and they're managing childcare that isn't often in the vicinity, or these schools are at capacity, beyond capacity for at least another 6 or 7 years. So my question is, with the 41 parking spaces, I am curious about the needs for single moms particularly, but also those visiting other residents of the building and their requirement to access parking and perhaps be in a car, whether it's taking elderly parents to appointments and things like that. It does seem like given the need of given the demographic that will be living in this building and typically their need to have a car, it seems like relatively low parking spaces, although I support the minimum parking policy. I'm just curious if staff can comment on that.
Hello, it's Yardley McNeil, Assistant Director of Planning again. The project qualifies and satisfies the parking bylaw for social housing, which is determined to generally not have the same requirement in terms of parking. I'd just like to point out that there are also car share opportunities within the neighborhood for people that don't own cars, and the property is on a rapid transit area and within close walking proximity to a subway line. So all of that combined.
Thank you. I'm out of time. I do appreciate that and mentioned that in posing my question. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bly. Next up is Councillor Kirby-Yung.
Yeah, thank you. And I'd like to direct my question to the applicant as well and just follow up on the discussion around affordability. And I appreciate that you'd outlined the different funding sources and the work that you're doing there in terms of aligning for the rents in that mix. I just have a couple of clarifications. And that's, for example, when you say 20% of homes at deep subsidy, can you give us a frame of reference as to what that means? And similarly, also with the terminology that's used in the report, 30% of homes at affordable market rent. So does that mean it will be slightly lower than market? I'm just looking for a little bit more detail or viewpoint on that.
Yeah, sure. Happy to respond. Thank you, Councillor. So the deep subsidy levels are determined by BC Housing. So those are kind of provincial rates that are set by BC Housing. So we just use those. The lower end of market rents is the third category that that you can create essentially with the BC Housing to be eligible for the BC Housing funding. So you have to go forward with these 3 affordability levels to qualify for the CHF. It's the deep subsidy, the rent geared to income, and then the low end of market. And so the low end of market can be anywhere from market rents in the area to any version of lower than market rents in the area that the project is still financially viable with. So the way we looked at it is we did a survey of market rents in the area, and then we were able to propose rents at the lower end of market by reducing those rents by about 15% from existing rents in the area. And, you know, keep in mind that existing rents in the area are with older buildings. So if we consider sort of new buildings in the area, I would say the rents that we're proposing at the market end are more like 25% of comparable market rents for a new building. There just aren't a lot of new building comparables.
Okay, so just following up for a couple of clarifications, and when you say sort of BC Housing definition for deep subsidy, are you not talking shelter rates, are you? Or what are you referring to? I'm trying to get a level of magnitude. I don't know. I don't want to put you on the spot quoting numbers if you're not comfortable, but I'm trying to get a bit of a frame of reference here.
Yeah, I don't believe they're shelter rates, but I can actually ask my colleague Annalise if she can comment more specifically on where those deep subsidy numbers come from. Annalise, if you have a comment, you can jump in.
Hi, yes, thank you. This is Annalise speaking. Thank you, Councillor. So as far as I understand, they are similar to shelter rents. They are at that lower end of the spectrum. And so, for example, in our building, they range from $375 to $660.
Okay.
Thank you.
That's really helpful. And then on the upper third, the 30% that your colleague was talking about, a desire to sort of beat market, if you will, as long as the economics work for the building in terms of operations.
Yes, and right now they do at that 15 to 20% lower than existing rents in the area. And then our deep subsidy units are going to be offered first and foremost to the existing 21 tenants in the building, because those deep subsidy rents that Annalise just mentioned are within the range of the rent levels that the existing tenants currently pay. So I would say
that's really yeah. Sorry, I don't mean to jump in, but I have limited time, so they keep us on a clock. So that's really helpful, and I appreciate that. I did want to ask you one other question while I have you, and I was looking at some of the history that you have on your website in terms of dating back to 1926 and sort of some of the projects that you've done. How long has this particular project Envisioning been in the making? I know that we had staff say it was 7.5 months to public hearing, but I know there's a lot more work prior to that in terms of visioning and then approaching a different funding partner. So how long have you been contemplating or working on this?
Yeah, so our firm has been partnered with Soroptimist on this project since 2017, but I would say the real hardcore visioning work to come up with this vision of housing for women by women that makes this project unique would have been January 2018, January 2018.
Okay. It's a lot of work, right?
An enormous amount of work.
Thank you very much. That's my time.
Thanks so much. And next up is Councillor Dominato. Go ahead with your questions to staff and the applicant, Councillor Dominato.
Thanks, Chair. Yes, to the applicant, I just wanted to follow up and out of curiosity if there's any specific services on site as part of the housing proposal to serve the women who will be living there.
Counselor, do you mean currently or in the new building?
In the new building, sorry to be clear. Thanks for clarifying.
Sure. So in the new building, we will be looking to have Atira, as Carla Bernardo mentioned, as the property manager. Those discussions are happening currently, so that's not a formalized relationship yet, but they are looking to have Atira involved. And with Atira's involvement, some of the programs that Atira offers would be suitable to the populations that would live in this building. So we've had discussions, and then Soroptimist themselves, offer a lot of different programs and education and awards for women. And so a lot of those Soroptimist focused services and programs would be, offered within the building, within the women that live in the building. And some of the Atira services would be as well, like senior services. We've talked about education. We've talked about finance and financial management, those type health related, workshops, that type of thing.
Okay, that's great. You're having those conversations. And then my other question just around the not public ground, but outdoor space, what seems to be on the ground level at the back of the building, I believe, from looking at the visuals, is I take it that's common area for families or others to use. Is that correct?
Yeah, that is correct. It's all common spaces. And if you want more detail on the landscaping, we can have Kelty or Amala speak as well.
I was just curious about the, again, loved the video and I love the visuals. If it had included sort of green space, I'm thinking given that you're trying to sort of accommodate children as well in the building.
Yeah, so there is an outdoor play space and natural play area for children. There's an outdoor Zen garden. There's some outdoor seating areas. There's an outdoor wall labyrinth, finger labyrinth on the wall. And then we do have the the ground-oriented units each have their own outdoor space as well. And the idea is that those would be family-oriented units at the ground level with their own small outdoor space, both in the front and the back of the building. But yes, at the ground level, there is outdoor common amenity space, including that children's playground. And then there's also a significant amount of rooftop amenity that is both indoor and outdoor amenity on the roof.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dominato. And Councillor DiGenova, I see you next on the list.
Thanks very much. My first question is for the applicant. I'm wondering, have you before applied to the Community Housing Fund? And if so, have you been successful in an application before?
Yeah, so I'll respond. No, this is the first time that that we have put forward an application to the CHF, and it was, very, very wonderful to have the award for this first application.
Are you expecting other funding from BC Housing?
So the project.
Housing rents?
No, the CHF, so basically right now we have received letters of support for funding from CMHC with the co-investment fund. So they've offered, a preliminary letter that offers a $3 million grant and $31 million in financing. BC Housing has also offered, 16 million in grant and the remainder financing through CHF. So right now what we're doing is working with, and the City of Vancouver has offered us a grant through your CHIP program. So right now what we're doing is working with BC Housing and CMHC to have them sort of work in an integrated way with the funding from both organizations to find out, which we'll go with the financing and which will go with their grants, and maybe they'll work together. But the fact is we could go either way with financing and funding from either organization. But ideally, we want to have, all three levels of government at the table for this project.
Sorry to cut you short. I just have limited time for questions here. I'm just wondering if you had spoken with Atira about sort of any client group that you would consider, you know, tenanting in this building if they were managing that for you, and if they had thought that those tenants may be eligible for rent subsidies under BC Housing?
We have talked to Atira about potentially some of their clients that are transitioning out of supportive housing into second stage housing might be eligible here. But we haven't had discussions about whether or not those clients would need additional rent subsidies to live in the building. But thanks for that. We'll explore that.
That's great. I would assume if they're already Atira clients, Atira would know if they're getting subsidies, because the subsidy goes with the person, not the door. But I just was wondering. Also wondering, as the project becomes just, I have a little background in non-market housing. As the project becomes more affordable, will your rents become more affordable? So for instance, with a newer project, about 25 years is sort of the spot where you'll see it, where the building maintenance hasn't started to decline and is in such disrepair that you're able to have paid off enough of your financing to be able to move forward. Do you expect to be able to deepen affordability and lower rents as you move forward?
We haven't had those discussions yet, so I think those are to be determined questions at this point.
And then I'm just wondering, is there, I see a cross subsidy type of model here. I don't have a lot of time. Would you be able to tell me, is any subsidy that you take from this, it would only be funding other rental housing subsidy, it would only be subsidizing other rental housing within this building, is that correct? It wouldn't be subsidizing other projects?
No, every source of funding and financing we have received or are seeking is 100% going towards this project only.
But the rents, if you have some rents that are higher than others, and there is a cross subsidy model, which I see kind of outlined here, I'm just wondering, would you only be cross subsidizing within this building? Or maybe staff could answer that, if that's how they interpret this from the report.
Hi, it's Marcel in rezoning. I could hand that over to our housing team.
I have about 20 seconds, so if I have to move for another round of questions, maybe I could do that now, Chair Boyle?
Let's see if staff can answer it quickly. You're the last on the list. Thanks. Is there someone from planning able to answer that question?
Hi, yes, it's Annie Mobless, Senior Planner for Housing. I actually am not 100% understanding the question. I know it's regarding cross-subsidization, but could you just repeat the question and I'll try to help?
First, I'll ask the chair. Chair, should I move for another round of questions? I won't take a whole 5 minutes. This is my last one.
Okay, yes, go ahead. We'll just do a verbal vote, a motion for a second round of questions. Do we have a seconder on that?
Second.
Thanks. And all in favor?
Yay.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, please repeat the question for staff, Councillor DiGenova.
There are a number of questions that I just have based on some of the other questions that I'd heard answers to from the applicant. And I'm wondering, in reviewing this pro forma and from the referral report, I understand that there is some degree of cross subsidy here, where some units would be subsidized, some rents in some units would be subsidizing others. And if that's correct, I'm just wondering, is that subsidy going to stay within this building and this project, or is it within the organization?
I see. So again, it's Annie Mobless here. Thanks for the clarification. I could speak generally about that, and maybe the applicant would like to get into the details, but we absolutely do see in social housing projects that they're often cross-subsidized within buildings. And so those higher rents, low end of market rents, help to facilitate meeting the city's definition of affordability with 30% average of hills to balance out the total cost to effectively run the building. In this case, because they have Community Housing Fund money from BC Housing, they're able to exceed that. But even in a BC Housing model, those shelter rate units really are made possible by that mixed income throughout the rest of the building. I don't know if that helps answer the question, but
maybe just more to the point, does the housing agreement, or will the housing agreement that comes out of this specify that the subsidy, any rents that are going to subsidize other rents or other programs or projects or whatever that is, it would be within this project? Is that what the housing agreement would say?
Absolutely. Yeah, the housing agreement's tied to this building, and they would need to meet the affordability requirements, and that would be laid out in the housing agreement. Yes.
Okay, thanks. Sorry if I wasn't clear enough.
No worries. Thank you.
Councillor DiGenova, those are all your questions?
I promise that was all. Thank you.
Okay. We will now move to hearing from members of the public on this item. If there are any speakers for this item who wish to speak to council, please call toll-free 1-833-353-8610, followed by participant code 1061445 before the close of the speakers list. The phone number will be tweeted out and made available on the live stream. And we have speakers on the line to comment on this item. So we will start with Lenore Riddell. Do we have Lenore Riddell on the line? Clerk, do we have Lenore Riddell on the?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now. Thank you so much. You have up to 5 minutes. Please go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Hello, and thank you for the opportunity to speak about redevelopment at 546 West 13th. My name is Lenore Riddell. I'm a retired nurse practitioner, currently working as an immunizer for the COVID campaign at various Vancouver coastal sites. I am fully in support of this project. My interest in this development is threefold. First, as a nurse practitioner who had a practice focused on health access for multi-barriered women, I heard many times of the search for housing that they could afford for themselves, and for those with children, it was even more difficult. So it wasn't unusual for women having to rent in unsafe or unhealthy environments. This project will not end the housing crisis by any means, but it will certainly provide more women with or without children the opportunity to live safely, with the added bonus of having multi-generational women as support. For senior women, they will have the occasion to share life lessons and to interact with children of all ages, thus decreasing their social isolation. Secondly, as a woman with a mobility disability, I'm excited about the opportunity to ensure that the dedicated apartments are fully accessible. Well, the architects and our builders are, or will be, very aware of all the codes and will guarantee they are followed. The architects are also very open to supplying the nuances that ensure that spaces are disability friendly. For example, wider doors to accommodate wheelchairs and walkers, and enhanced bathroom space. As someone who has been in many apartments where these details don't exist and where women who use mobility devices have to either devise solutions that they really can't afford, or else the walls take a beating, which contributes to a very scruffy living environment and is really not very nice. Thirdly, I've already said that the proposed redevelopment won't solve the housing crisis, but it is a step in the right direction. In my current work as an immunizer, I talk to young nurses starting their career all the time. They are unable to rent in the city, which contributes to the nursing crisis in our inner city hospitals. Unless there is affordable housing, these nurses will be looking for work outside Vancouver, which is a shame, as their energy and dedication to their careers is a lost opportunity for our community. Finally, you've already heard about how this is the first development project in Western Canada being developed, designed, and delivered by a team composed almost entirely of highly qualified women. As a woman, I'm immensely proud of this and hope that the Council will support the application for redevelopment. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I don't see any speakers. You spoke very clearly, so thank you for making the time to call in tonight. We will move to the next speaker, who is Sharon Fisher. Do we have Sharon Fisher on the line?
Yes, can you hear me?
We can.
Hello?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. Great. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to the hearing. My name is Sharon Fisher, and I currently serve as the international president of Seroptimist International. We're an NGO that has members and projects in over 120 countries across the globe, working to improve the lives of women and girls. And this year, as you've heard, we celebrate 100 years of service. 100 years of working to overcome the marginalized conditions impacting women and girls. Our accreditation at the United Nations goes back to 1948, being one of the first NGOs to have consultative status. And it is with this lens I speak to you this evening and would like to share some of the realities of housing for older women and, in fact, for women of all ages. Everywhere in this world, housing insecurity is a societal issue, and here in Vancouver, that is no secret to anyone in this call. It was an issue in Vancouver in 1926 when this club was formed, and this is why the early members invested in housing for women, commencing with a home for police women right here in the city of Vancouver. Many of the club's founders, professional women in the city, left substantial money to the club through their estates with the stipulation it be spent on housing for women, which is how we got here today. Something that has had limited research is the experiences of insecure housing among older women with a low income that puts them at risk. Housing security is about more than affordability and also must provide safety, privacy, and autonomy within the living space. Many women have experienced destabilizing factors that have marginalized them, including the death of a spouse, a serious illness, loss of employment, escaping abusive partners, divorce, financial abuse from family, eviction from conflicts with landlords that all limit their housing options. I have acted as a mentor for Seroptimist International of Vancouver for almost 2 decades. I had to laugh when you said, how long have you been working on this project? Because it was over this building I was first came to the club and had conversations with them. And in that time, I visited this building many, many times and met several residents. The residents are typically older single women that would not be able to remain in this area of Vancouver that they have called home for decades, if not for the affordability of the Seroptimist apartments. The proposed new building will increase capacity and therefore improve the lives of many more women, giving them independence and a place to call home. The design will suit various needs, especially for single mothers and senior women. There's a generous amount of indoor and outdoor amenities for different age groups and abilities. This will strengthen the sense of community and belonging. Residence in a building like this means a lifelong change for some of the most vulnerable. In the Greater Vancouver area, homelessness of women is a big issue. Older women sleeping in cars or becoming adept at house sitting, staying with friends, and relying on food banks is increasing at an alarming rate. Many of these women have never considered themselves homeless before and sadly blame themselves for their situation when the reality is the blame lies on broken systems, with the root cause being poverty. Affordable housing allows women to thrive with dignity and pride. I have heard stories from women in this building who know they could have experienced the situation I just described, but instead are vibrant community members, appreciative of this place to call home. Their affordable tenancy has allowed them to thrive and be useful, contributing citizens, leading happy, fulfilling lives, holding their heads high as they go about their daily lives. I commend the City of Vancouver on their housing strategy, a critical element in solving housing needs anywhere. I support approval of the rezoning and development of 546 West 13th Avenue to allow more women to be helped with their housing needs. This is a legacy to the early women of Vancouver who had the vision to recognize the importance of housing for women by women. And again, thank you for the opportunity to speak with you this evening.
Thank you. And I don't see any questions from council, but again, you spoke very clearly. Thanks for making the time. Next up is speaker number 2, Georgianne Oldham.
Yes, I'm here.
Great, and we can
you
hear
hear me?
you. You have, yes, we can. You have up to 5 minutes. Please go ahead.
Thank you so much. So my name is Georgianne Oldham, and my partner, Ann Way, and I are current owners former residents and now landlords at the building just to the west and south of this proposed development, 555 West 14th Avenue. Our building wraps around this property on those two sides. And I first want to say that our position is that we oppose the rezoning. And I want to really clarify that because I want to make very, very clear that we are not opposed to the social housing. We're not opposed to the living next door to women. In fact, we have lived next door to this building that has been run by the Soroptimist organization for many, many years as really good neighbors and lived quite harmoniously with them. The concern that we have is the rezoning and the need for the rezoning. The concern is really the size and the mass of this project and whether or not there is a need for that. So it is not in opposition to the social housing aspects of this. And I just want to go through a couple of points here. In the reading of the referral report of June 11th, I believe, there is absolutely nowhere in this report that indicates that there was any consideration of our building. In fact, even in the pictures, it's sort of whited out as if it doesn't exist there. A shadow assessment was done to consider the swimming pool across the street, but there was no indication that there was any study done of the impact on our building, shadow impact or otherwise. This proposed 13-story building will immediately abut. And when I say immediately abut, it's like practically on our patios. Our 3-story building completely block all of the morning light for all of the patios directly facing this building on the west side. And in our estimation, this is outdoor space. It may not be public outdoor space. It may not be a swimming pool, but it's the only outside space and their only source of natural light. And this is significant blockage to a very large part of our building. The report states that there was an intention to ensure that this building was sympathetic to surrounding property owners, and it then contradicts itself by not addressing any issues related to our building, and also by proposing a footprint and a height that's completely out of alignment with every other building on the block. This would be a massive structure in height and width. The report specifically states that the building would extend significantly beyond maximum width regulations set forth in Section 431 of the district schedule. And their argument is that it fits sympathetically into the existing urban fabric, using the example of the tower across the street. The building across the street has significant setbacks, significant green space, and doesn't interfere with outside space such as patios, does not impact the surrounding buildings with a significant loss of light and privacy. It's a very, very different situation. If this proposed rezoning and building project goes through as recommended, it'll have significant impact on the quality of life for the individuals who live in our building. The effect of a project like this on middle-income wage earners who bought into our building, hoping to build a home, to build equity over time, to have a community, are now having to deal with this extreme, unanticipated impact from a building project that in some way serves the stated agenda. We do have a question about that potential 30% or even more of market rent, and why people who are renting market rent would have priority, I guess, over already existing buildings. In summary, an expanded social housing development could easily fit within the given parameters of a current zoning on this property. If social housing is, in fact, the driving force of this development, and after listening to the applicants and the speakers so far, it is a very exciting project. I think that it would be wonderful to be able to have a project that supports women in the way that has been described. But we don't understand why it requires a change in zoning. This is a very small street. The parking issue was brought up before. It's a significant issue. You can't even drive more than one car down the street at a time. You actually have to wait to drive the street. So to add more parking, like there just isn't any other parking on the street. We fully support the city's mandate for affordable and social housing. We believe that this site can accommodate perhaps even more social housing units in a smaller building that is more suitable to the neighborhood and more sympathetic to the buildings around it. We just question the fact that new inventory like this needs to make old housing inventory less desirable, particularly when this old inventory already provide modest homes for owners and tenants. Our community is shifting as a result of this. We've already had a couple of people move out and sell. A building of an appropriate size would not be producing this. To have buildings that are butting right up to people's private
That
space.
is your 5-minute speaker. Sorry to cut
Thank you.
off, but
No, that's all
we're
right.
over
Thank you very much.
minutes. But you do have questions from councillors if you're willing. Councillor
Sure.
Kirby Young has questions. Go ahead, Councillor Kirby Young.
Yeah,
Okay,
thanks,
I'll
Chair.
try my best.
Yeah, thanks for being here to speak. You had mentioned you didn't think it required a change in zoning, and staff had mentioned during the presentation that the base zoning enabled 120 feet, and this proposal was 11 feet higher than that. So my question to you is, would you be supportive of the project if it was at the 120 feet and not the 11 feet higher?
Well, I think that I would love it to be a little bit shorter, but it's actually the width that is the bigger issue. The footprint that this building, the proposed building, just comes right up close to our property, which we already don't have any extra property. These patios are people's outside space. Their patios are going to be directly looking into other people's patios. The privacy is an issue. In looking at the video and the images that have been provided, it almost looks as though the space that is shown in the video is our property. It's very hard to distinguish between the two. So I would love it if it was shorter. However, it's the width that is the biggest issue, and the impact that has on privacy and light.
Okay, thanks for clarifying. I'll ask a clarifying question of staff later. Thanks for speaking.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. And those are all the questions from council. Thank you again for making the time to phone in. And we will move on to speaker number 3. Speaker number 3 is Shelley Cunningham. Do we have Shelley Cunningham on the line?
Hi, yes, I'm here.
Great.
If it's okay, Ms. Oldham spoke so eloquently and actually touched on many of the points that I was planning to make. So if I can kind of pick up where she left off. Shelley Cunningham, I'm a homeowner at 555 West 14th. And to me, it's interesting in the referral report that they keep referring to Camellia Court, the 12-story building across the street, and trying to liken it to a comparable, when our building, in fact, wraps around this building on 2 sides and yet is not mentioned in the report at all. That the artist renderings, the video that were illustrated as simply white blocks, dehumanizes it and doesn't reflect the real impact of the building on 57 homeowners. That this, whether it's 120 feet or 133 feet, towering over, dwarfing a 3-story building, and yet no mention, even though we take up 50% 2 sides of the building. The shadow report, taking over to the Camellia Port Pool, that on the L shape, the east side units on our building, the only natural light that they get is in the morning. And there was no report of what the impact of the shadow will be on that and their loss of natural light. Georgiana already mentioned the privacy and proximity. The report even acknowledges that the breadth, that the width of the building is exceptional, and that they want to ensure that the new development fits sympathetically into the existing urban fabric. And I just can't see that is actually what the building does. Again, totally in favor. I would ask council if they could please separate in their decision making that we can support the moral mandate of the Soroptimists and affordable and social housing, but reconsider the actual physical development and the building and its impact on the immediate community. I'm finished speaking. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your comments and your time. I don't see any questions from council for you, but really appreciate you making the time to phone in this evening. Next up is speaker number 4. Speaker number 4 is Anna Forsyth. Do we have Anna Forsyth
Yes,
on the line?
I'm on the line.
Great, we can hear you. You have up to 5 minutes. Please go right ahead.
Okay, I'll be pretty brief. I'm speaking in support. I'm a Vancouver resident. I think that what our city really needs is social housing in general, but especially for women who've suffered disproportionately from the pandemic. And the idea of combining generations of senior women, of working women, and of women-led families, I think is just such a positive idea to come out of such a tricky time for all of them. Something that really appeals to me about this project is the women-led design and putting women at the center of design, because that's an aspect that often gets left behind in housing. But putting women on the project to come up with these issues that might not get considered otherwise is really important. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you for phoning in. I don't see any questions for you, but really appreciate you taking the time. Next up is speaker number 5. Speaker number 5 is Cody Spencer.
Yes, hello.
Hi, great. We can hear you clearly. You have up to 5 minutes. Please go right ahead.
Great, thanks. Good evening. My name is Cody Spencer, and I live 1 block west of this property. And I'm here to voice my support for the application for a few different reasons. First, based on the proposed design, the building will be unique and attractive. And further, based on the proximity to transit and services, I support the overall scale and massing of the project. Second, and most importantly, the project would provide a crucial supply of affordable housing for low-income women, which is very much needed in this neighborhood. As an area resident, I really want to live in an inclusive and diverse community that provides housing options for all income groups, and this project would help to advance this goal. This was mentioned by the applicant, but I also wanted to emphasize that the project was only one of 6 projects in southern BC, or in Metro Vancouver and the Sunshine Coast, that received funding through the most recent BC Housing Funding Call. So clearly, the province saw a lot of value in this project, and I'm hopeful that Council will also support the project in moving forward. In summary, this is the type of development that is desperately needed in this neighborhood and the city overall. And that concludes my comments. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I don't see questions from Council for you, but appreciate you taking the time to phone in. Council, next up is speaker number 6. Speaker number 6 is Chris Graham. Do we have Chris Graham on the line?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
We can hear you. Yes, you have up to 5 minutes. Please go right ahead.
Okay, thank you. Hi, everyone. As she said, my name is Chris Graham. I'm also a neighboring resident next door to the proposed tower. And I'm really for social housing. I really like the look of this project, but I have to be against it. And it is just because the same thing that Ms. Cunningham and Oldham said. It's just the footprint and the height of this design seems just far too excessive for our little building that's next door. And it just doesn't seem appropriate for the neighborhood. And as a senior architectural technologist, I actually did my own shadow study to take a look and see how the consideration of our building and the building next door would be affected by this tower. And it does actually make significant loss of morning sunlight, which they actually mentioned. And as well, the neighboring building next to us, this is on Ash, it does the same thing to that building during the summer months. And I noticed that during the winter months, the buildings across the street will also experience severe shadowing during the afternoon in the winter months. And I don't know why this was left out of that referral report. It just seems like it should have been something that they would have looked at, considering we're, in such close proximity to the new proposal. Another thing I wanted to mention was the footprint fails to meet the RM1 zoning that is required. It doesn't have the front and rear yard setbacks that are in the RM1 zoning, and the lot size of the proposed development, it's only 46 meters wide by 30 meters deep, and that's significantly smaller than the lot that they use in comparison, which is Camellia Court. And that is a 14-story tower across the street, and it's referred to as being similar, but really it isn't. The tower is, the lot alone is 61 meters by 38 meters deep, and it's also buffered by an alley on two sides, and it fits actually within the RM3 zoning. It's zoned as RM3, and it also has generous setbacks. There's like 50 feet or more on each side yard, and I think there's 40 feet on the front and rear. And it's not really a good comparison, and I think it was built quite a long time ago compared to this new build. The existing tower tends to, like if you look at the video, it does show it does crowd the neighboring structures like the new proposal, and it's being squeezed into an inadequate space that is just not appropriate for this current design. I think it should be made a little bit smaller in the footprint, and reducing the height would also help quite a bit. I think it's just too large, is what I'm trying to say. And I guess in closing, I just want to say that I have concerns of the parking spots for this project as well, because West 13th Avenue between Ash and Cambie is also quite busy and congested right now. So when you add all these people who I think a good chunk of them are actually going to drive cars, there's not going to be any additional room for parking on the street. And I think it's unrealistic to expect that, out of all these new people in the neighborhood, that a majority aren't going to be driving cars, especially, I think, the single women who maybe have two kids and taking transit to try and, pick up groceries or whatever. It might be quite difficult. Further details regarding the reconsideration of this development as proposed are in a letter that I have submitted with my wife earlier. So in closing, I really want to just say I do like the look of the project, and I'm totally not opposed to social housing. My mom was a single mother as well. So I think the size and the density of the proposed development is just not appropriate for the neighborhood, and rezoning is also, I think, not necessary. So if there's any way to reduce the scope, I think that's something that should be looked at. And I'm done speaking. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And if you don't mind, you have questions from Councillor Hardwick. Councillor Hardwick, go
Sure.
ahead.
Thank you very much. Did you say you're an architectural technologist?
Yes.
And you've been doing modeling, particularly around the shadow studies? I did. Yeah. Elaborate a little bit more on that.
What would you like to know? I just did a mock-up in SketchUp to show the shadowing that would hit our building in the mornings during the summer, and how it would affect buildings also on the other side of the street.
Have you shared that with us?
I believe it was in I can't remember if we included it in that report or not, but I'll send it along if that's helpful.
I think it'd be useful. So your key areas of concern are height and massing and parking, which is something we hear a lot.
And I mean the shadows would be reduced obviously if the height was reduced. That would make a difference, and the width is, like Georgianne Oldman said, it's the footprint is a bit intrusive as well.
From your modeling, were you able to come up with an alternative where you how much less height, how much less massing? Did you draw any conclusions from your modeling?
No, I would have had to, go floor by floor, and that would just take too many hours to try and do. I mean, I could do it, but it's something I didn't have time to actually get into.
You suggested that the rezoning might not be necessary if the proponent or the applicant had stayed within the existing zoning parameters. I'm just want to test the logic of what you're saying, because they obviously it wouldn't go to the time and trouble of going through a rezoning if they felt that they could accommodate their, what they need to do within the existing zoning. So I just wondered if you could elaborate on why you said that it could work within the existing zoning.
It's just because of the size of the footprint that they're pushing it beyond the setbacks that are allowed, especially in the front, and the width is, a little bit over what it should be. So you're taking up a lot of FSR and you're squeezing it into a lot that's, much smaller than the one across the street. The one across the street, I think it's 4 or 5 different lots, and they're all like much larger than what exists now on our location of this proposed tower. So it's just, if you were going to use something that was like 6 stories maybe and much more reduced in footprint, it would probably work with RM3. I can't figure it out right now. I would have to sit down and play around with some of the sizing, but I think you could, realistically make it work within this zoning and still even come up with a building that would have 100% social housing.
Well, thank you for that. Hopefully we'll get a chance to redirect some of our questions after we hear from the public. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Those are all of your questions, and you are able to resend that requested document through the city clerk,
okay,
who will distribute it to all of council. Yep. Thanks so much for that. Next up is speaker number 7, Ryan Matthew. Do we have speaker 7 on the line?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, and you have up to 5 minutes. Go right ahead.
Okay, thank you. Hi, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Ryan Matthew. I'm also a resident of the neighboring building. And while I do support social housing in our city, I do have serious concerns about the size and the density of this development. Many of the same concerns as have already been stated. It's simply not in alignment with the residential buildings in this area and would have a very real negative impact on the adjacent buildings if it moves forward as proposed. The comment about the Camellia Court comparison being a comparable comparison has already been stated, but I just would like to reiterate the fact that, the development that's proposed is very clearly shoehorned into the site that's far too small. I mean, it maxes out the allowable width, height, and depth of the site, and the balconies that actually wrap the entire perimeter exceed the permitted setback by up to 6 feet in some places. So if it's approved, it will compromise the privacy and the light of not only the neighboring buildings that surround it, but also the future residents of this building. I mean, we're talking about, the impact on us as the neighbors, but people living in the building are also going to be just as close to our building as we are to them. So I live on the 2nd floor of 555 West 14th, the building that a few other people have mentioned that wraps this proposed building. And I'm one of the units that faces east, so it would be less than 20 feet from the edge of the proposed building and actually facing directly into one of the 350 square foot studios that will have a balcony looking directly into our bedroom window. And so with an indoor living space of only 350 square feet, one could expect that the resident will be making frequent use of their balcony, which will be looking, it's at the same level and only 20 feet away from our building. So it just seems like quite a reduction in our privacy and theirs, truthfully. The proposal claims that it will maintain a 22-foot setback on the west side that faces our building, but with the sort of undulating balconies, they actually come almost 8 feet closer than that to the property line. So, it's apparent from the site plans and the flyover renderings that this building is completely out of scale with the neighborhood. The RM3 zoned areas have a FSR of 1, and this is seeking an exemption to build something 6 times denser, which just seems ridiculous, honestly. I also have some concerns about the marketing of this building, and it's described as 135 social housing units. In the referral report, the on-site signage, even in the introduction of this proposal in this meeting, which is frankly misleading because it's not 135 units of social housing. It's perhaps 30%, perhaps more than that if the BC Housing Program accepts the application. But in no scenario is it actually 135 units of social housing. So I do find the material that's been published to date to be quite misleading, and I have to believe that this has contributed to the proposal's support, or rather has contributed to its lack of opposition. I'm also concerned about the removal of 2 very large, very old trees that are located on the northwest corner of the site. I think the applicant did indicate that all existing street trees that are adjacent to the site would be retained, but my fear is that the 2 trees in question are not actually street trees, as they're on the property side of the sidewalk. So, these are 2 of the largest trees on the street, surely decades, perhaps even over 100 years old, and to lose them would be a true tragedy. I have the same concerns about the parking that have already been mentioned, so I won't reiterate those. But I guess in closing, the proposed size, height, and density are just not appropriate for this neighborhood. And I guess I'll finish by saying, if the pro forma requires 40 or more market rate units to subsidize the affordable ones, then perhaps this isn't a large enough site for such an ambitious project. I urge the council to reevaluate the height and density of this building and consider a design that's more appropriate in size. Thanks.
Thanks so much. And that was right on time. You do have a couple questions from councillors, if you don't mind staying on the line. And the first up is Councillor DiGenova.
Thanks very much. I just had a question. You were talking about your privacy and sort of the line of sight views, I suppose, into your living space as well as others. And I'm just wondering if at the time of choosing your living space, you had any expectation that there would be nothing built here on the site or any redevelopment one day. Had that ever been expressed, or a conversation you had at the time you chose to live where you do right now?
Do we still have Ryan Matthew on the line to answer that question? Clerk,
Chair, is the clerk? The speaker has disconnected.
Okay, sorry about that, Council.
Okay. Thanks.
Perhaps the clerk can let us know if he rejoins. But otherwise,
I'm sorry, can you hear me now?
Oh, yes, we can. Did you hear? I assume this is speaker number 7, Ryan Matthews?
It is, yes. I apologize for that. I accidentally disconnected on my phone, but I did hear the question on the live stream.
Okay, great. Please go ahead with an answer if you're willing.
Yeah, so my partner and I moved into the building almost exactly 1 year ago. And no, we had no expectation that there would be anything built next to us. We assumed that, with the older housing stock that surrounded us, that it was a pretty safe bet that it would be, as it stands for the foreseeable future, particularly since, it was a building that is social housing for women. We expected that would be not ripe for redevelopment, and, has an established community of residents that have been here for many, many years. So yeah, certainly not something that we expected.
Thanks for answering my questions on that. I'm just wondering, did you feel that there was an appropriate level of engagement with the applicant and considering what they need to do in this process? Do you feel that they had engaged you as much as they could have, and through the processes, did you feel engaged? If you don't mind me asking, you don't have to answer my question, but just wanted to know.
Yeah, I would say that like it was an adequate level of engagement. I felt like we were adequately notified of upcoming hearings, and were given an opportunity to voice our opinions. I'll reiterate the fact that I did feel a little bit misled about this building supposedly being 135 affordable housing units. But aside from that, I feel like I was engaged.
Thanks very much for answering my questions. I appreciate it and for making the time tonight.
Yeah. Thanks.
Thanks so much, Speaker, for phoning back in. Those are all the questions from Council, and again, really appreciate your time this evening. Speaker number 8 is Janet Law. Thank you. Do we have Speaker number 8, Janet Law, on the line?
Yes, you do.
Great.
Okay,
We can
I'm
hear
gonna
you.
go.
You have up to 5 minutes. Go right ahead.
Okay. My name is Janet Law, and I live in Vancouver, and I am in total support of this housing project in this city because it improves the lives of women and it expands 100% affordable housing. I'm so happy to have the opportunity to support this current project. I was born in Vancouver, and this is still my home. And boy, has it changed in 60 years. Housing affects the very heart and soul of a person. And as everyone knows, we all need a place to call home. I work in the healthcare field in prenatal and postnatal health and in the education of women and with women. Affordable housing is so critical in the improvement of the lives of children and women, not only in the city, but globally. And we are a global city in many ways. This initiative and the moving forward of this project, to me, is like a testament to the original Vancouver Soroptimist women who committed themselves as a volunteer service organization to house women. They gathered all their resources, time, talent, treasure to ensure that this would occur. And they did this on their own in the late 50s, and the building was built in the early 60s. And they knew that there was a need for housing, and right now there is a need for housing even more. I will also like to say that in this moment, we need to acknowledge the emotional, physical, mental, and spiritual needs that all of us need, and that we all do much better when we have a place to call home. In my daily work, I see families that struggle with the challenges and also the joys of family, in particular single mothers. Without a physical shelter, an affordable place to live, it becomes very difficult. I also want to communicate the importance of intergenerational living models. I believe that it can respond always to that innate human need to connect together. We learn, we grow together, and we have a home that is affordable. Grandmothers, mothers, children, working women, and all of the women that work, and we all work, whether we work preparing meals at home or getting our children off to school, or seniors who need to have a safe place to live, or whether it's a woman who works in the downtown core. We all collectively and individually work together. And I would like to say that this housing project is in a great location. It also is close to amenities and transit, and it's affordable housing in this city. I believe it is on the right scale and height for the area, and that the 135 units would be available for these women. It houses seniors and single women, housing for workforce women. And I look at this building, it's beautiful, and it's going to improve the standards of affordable housing and what affordable housing can look like. These projects sometimes, I know the height and density has been a concern. I've heard that as I've been listening, but we also know that every single one of those 135 units, each one will require a 20 minimum subsidy through BC Housing to make it work. So, in saying all of that, delivering this housing for women, by women, definitely is something that I support 100%. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you so much for making the time to phone in. I don't see any questions from council, but you expressed yourself very clearly, so really appreciate your time. Our next speaker is speaker number 9, Brian Law. Clerk, do we have speaker number 9 on the line?
Chair, speaker 9 is not on the line.
Okay, thank you very much. Speaker number 10 is Hillary Smith. Do we have Hillary Smith on the line?
Yes, I'm here.
Great.
My name is Can you hear me?
Ahead. You have up to 5 minutes. Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay, thanks. My name is Hillary Smith, and I fully support the proposed development here. I'm 31 years old. I was born and raised in Vancouver in the Kitsilano neighborhood, and so far, frankly, I've had very little hope of being able to live affordably in this city, at least in a space that isn't either a basement suite or overrun with pests or both in some cases. I'm certainly not able to purchase, and even renting has been a challenge. I spent several years working full-time in the not-for-profit industry, and nearly all of my income went towards meeting basic needs like food and housing. I had many coworkers also full-time take on additional part-time jobs so they could actually save. And these are individuals who don't have added financial burden of children or dependents to take care of. At the moment, I'm in a healthcare professional master's degree program studying to be a speech-language pathologist. And while I do now feel somewhat more secure in my future housing prospects, earning a graduate degree should not be a prerequisite for accessing safe, clean, and affordable housing. We simply need more options, and I feel this proposed development is an important step in that direction, and that the arguments in favor are far more compelling than the arguments against. Like Lenore, who spoke earlier, I was also very pleased to hear that accessibility has been incorporated into the building plans here. We have an aging population, and aging brings with it an increased risk of a whole host of potentially disabling health events. Right now, I'm on an acute care placement at VGH's stroke unit, seeing this firsthand. I think the pandemic has really highlighted some of the pitfalls with our long-term care facilities, and there's a real need for homes that can accommodate changing needs and allow people to age in place. And that is all I have to say.
Thank you so much. You don't have any questions from council, but really, really appreciate you making the time to phone in this evening.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Speaker 11. Speaker 11 is Randy Purcell. Do we have Randy Purcell on the line? Speaker number 11, Randy Purcell.
Chair, it's the clerk. Speaker 11 should be on the line.
This is speaker number 11.
Great, we can hear you, and you have up to 5 minutes. Go right ahead whenever you're ready.
And it is speaker number 11 that you're speaking to now?
Speaker 11, Randy Purcell, is that you?
Oh, yes, it is. Thank you.
Yes,
okay, well, good evening, everybody. My name is Randy Purcell, and I am calling as a Vancouver resident. I currently live about a mile away in Olympic Village. I'm also the president of the board of Unity of Vancouver, a non-denominational spiritual center located at 42nd and Oak. In my capacity at Unity, I regularly interact with over 1,550 people. Now, approximately 70% of our members are women who are either retired or nearing retirement age. And I can tell you that a topic of great concern among them is the increasing cost of rental housing, combined with the increasing cost of living, which, as we all know, has been exacerbated by COVID. Now, I also know that you know of the rental housing crisis in this city only too well, but I'd like to reiterate that this is a cause of stress that is very real for our seniors. And I, therefore, would like to go on the record that I think that the redevelopment at 546 West 13th is actually an outstanding project that will greatly enhance the neighborhood and make a dramatic improvement in the lives of many, many people. I know that change is difficult, but densities are increasing all over the city. I know that living here in Olympic Village, where we're very blessed to be living here, 3 years ago, there was an announcement of modular housing being built a couple of blocks away for homeless people. And there was a movement in our building to protest against having the disadvantaged moved in so near to what were very expensive housing units. I was called upon to, join in that resistance to that particular move, and I declined because I think it's important for us to consider those that are less fortunate. And so I just want to be on the record as saying that I think that the target groups that this will benefit are in dire need, and it's very, very difficult for single parents. Single mothers have a very, very difficult time, and anything we can do to ease that situation, I think, is an important step in the right direction. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I don't see any questions from council, but you expressed yourself really clearly, so really appreciate you making the time to phone in. Speaker number 12 is Linda Purcell. Do we have speaker?
Hello,
12?
yes.
Yes.
Hello,
great.
I'm here. Can you hear me? Okay, great.
We absolutely
Thank
can.
you. Yes.
We have up to 5 minutes. Go ahead.
Thank you. Yes. My name is Linda Purcell. I grew up in Vancouver, and I currently live in Vancouver in Olympic Village. I am also calling on behalf of Latincouver. I am the fundraising and grant manager for Latincouver Cultural and Business Society, which is located in Gastown. Latincouver is a nonprofit society, and our mandate is to create physical and virtual spaces that allow Latin American culture, business, and social interaction within a Canadian context. And recently we have formed the Latin Seniors Council because there is a need to help seniors in the city, and there is a great need to help immigrant seniors. And in addition to that, I'm speaking on behalf of Latincouver in support of this building because we do need affordable housing in this city. We need affordable housing for seniors. We need affordable housing for women seniors. And we also need affordable housing that incorporates and includes new immigrants. So, I just feel that this building is a beautiful building, and I also feel that it is going to help to address the need for affordable housing in this city. And I understand that some of the neighbors, based on their comments, are concerned, and I understand their concerns, but I also know that there's a huge need in the city, and this building is in the right location, in the right place, and it is the right size, and it will help. It will, as some people have said, it won't solve it, but it will help. So I am strongly in favor of this individually as a person, and I'm also speaking on behalf of Vancouver Cultural and Business Society, and that we strongly support this project. So that's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And you don't have questions from council, but really appreciate you making the time to phone in this evening. Speaker number 13 is Marion Dyke. Do we have Marion Dyke on the line?
Yes, you do. Can you hear me?
We can hear you, and you have 5 minutes. Go ahead whenever you.
Thank you. I am Marion Dick, and I live along False Creek on Homer Street, and I'm in full support of this project. I actually moved to Vancouver about 4 years ago from Chilliwack, where I was very involved in the community, planning to stay for 1 year, and actually I'm really this is a beautiful community, and the housing needs that you see that we're talking about here are not unique to Vancouver alone. And women, I was a single mother with 2 kids. I understand the challenges in having to to juggle school and all activities and work and so on at the same time, and the challenge of money. It's this location. I'm in full support of it. The location provides so many amenities and so many needs that mothers require. There's been some concern about parking, but there is transit available close by, and I question whether everybody's going to have a car, because that too costs a lot of money. Obviously, Soroptimist have done an amazing job of planning it, trying to preserve views, trying to access all the funding that was available to them in order to provide all the units that they have. There's a huge need for housing for senior women, for single mothers, and for women in the workforce with children and with families. And the design of this complex is really quite outstanding. It would be wonderful to live in something that really is as attractive as this one is, and it's a wonderful project. Obviously, the current building, it was mentioned earlier, has has continuing needs. The condition is kind of deteriorating a little bit, so it's going to have to be replaced at some point, and it's always challenging for the neighborhood to change. Council, I'm sure, is very hears that with almost every rezoning project, but this one, I think, in the long run, is going to add, and it meets the needs of so many people who need it in the community. And I thank you for allowing me to speak. Thank you.
Thank you so much for making the time. I don't see any questions, but really appreciate your speaking to council on this. Speaker 14 is Mahtab Lahai. Mahtab.
Hi there, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Can you just let us know how to pronounce your last name?
Yes, Lahai.
Lahai. Okay, great. Thank you so much. We can hear you. You have up to 5 minutes to speak to council, and go ahead whenever you're ready.
Thank you so much. Good evening, council, and thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Mahtab, and I'm a campaign lead for Women Transforming Cities and also a resident of the City of Vancouver. Women Transforming Cities is in support of this rezoning application and Soroptimist International in their project to build more social housing for women, especially low-income senior women. As stated in their initial report, there is an urgent need to provide housing for those most made marginalized in our city. The centrality of the location of this development project, along with its perfect walk score, will allow for greater mobility for those who will live in these social housing units. And to address some of the neighborhood concerns over density and fit into the neighborhood, its current proximity to the Canada Line and other transit lines, and the fact that it is meant for housing for low-income folks, means there will be less cars than anticipated compared to a regular building of the same size, and less of an impact on traffic and congestion. Soroptimist International Vancouver is also an established housing provider on this plot and already fits well in the community. We strongly believe not only in the goals of this project, but also in the seamless integration to the surrounding neighborhoods. And I also wanted to mention that any building that is taller than the one beside it would cause a shadow. So 4 stories or 12 stories is the same. And amidst a changing society, as we prioritize high density housing to respond to the housing crisis, what is most important is how many people don't get homes, and that's where I believe our focus should be. With Metro Vancouver having the highest senior poverty rate of any urban area in British Columbia, in a province already facing the highest seniors living in poverty, compounded by the magnitude of the housing unaffordability, projects like these are urgent and essential. We hope that Council understands the need for existing social housing lots like these to be used to their full potential. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And I don't see any questions from Council for you, which means you communicated very clearly. So thanks for making the time to sign up and speak. Speaker number 15 is Donna Webb. Do we have Donna Webb on the line?
Yes, I'm here. I'm here.
And we can hear you. You have up to 5 minutes.
But wait a minute. My problem is I can hear you on the TV, and then you're later. Like I'm hearing it twice. I'm just finishing her now. Good. Okay. So you're just speaking to me now, right? Just a second. Let me speak. I can't do it.
To mute us on your TV.
I don't know how to do it. I'm 80 years old. I'm sorry. I don't know how to do it. I've tried everything, and I keep losing you. So I will start talking now over you, I guess. Okay. Okay. Shh, Donna, be quiet. And then you're later. Like I'm hearing it twice. I'm just finishing her now. Good. Okay. All right. So you're just speaking to me now. Okay. Good. So my name is Don. Let me speak. Okay. I can't do it. Okay. Okay.
If it works,
I don't know how to do it. I'm 80 years old. I'm sorry. I don't know how to do it. I've tried everything, and I keep losing you. So I will start talking now. Okay. So my name is Donna Webb. Donna, be quiet. Okay. 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 So here I am. Okay. God. Okay. Okay. I'm sorry. Okay. 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 Here. I don't know how to do it. I'm 80 years old. I'm sorry. Okay. I don't know how to do it. I've tried everything, and I keep losing you. So I will start talking now. Okay. So my name is Donna Webb.
Could the clerk possibly apply procedure? Could the clerk email the speaker
Pardon?
and suggest that the speaker turn their computer off or pause their computer?
Can I turn my computer off? Okay. Can I do that?
You should be able to not hear your echoing.
Okay, great. Thank you. I've been going nuts all night trying to figure out what to do. Okay, my name is Donna Webb. I have lived in Vancouver since 1967. I live with 3 hats. I've been a Rotarian, developing shelter boxes, giving people dignity. I've worked for Habitat, and I've had the pleasure of, with single women, insulating their houses so they could move away from drug barons. I've sat with First United in Spirit Circle, around the circle with marginalized people. We need this housing. We need it desperately. We need it for many reasons. We need it because seniors have been treated as invisible, and now we need to celebrate. We need a place like this is suggesting, an intergenerational one. The research is loud and clear. This idea of warehousing old people isn't working. We need to have a vibrant home where we can have intergenerational, they can hear children laughing and having a good time. I also have been working on an ageism program where I have 60 slides, and there's something called the grandparent brain. And the grandparent brain not only augments the development of seniors, but it also embraces the youth to understand what the elders can offer. We need empowerment for seniors, and we need desperately a place that's inclusive and safe. When I volunteer downtown Eastside, it's the women who never feel safe. Sometimes they didn't even feel safe to come to Spirit Circle. I'd have to go out and encourage them to come in. It's empowerment that we need. We need a beautiful building like that. Can you imagine the pride that a senior or a single mom would have as she embraces this beautifully designed building by women, for women, developed with the best intentions? And so I just, please, I'm in 100% support. I had to move from a huge house in Dunbar down here to Falls Creek when my husband died. And basically, I love being able to walk everywhere. I hardly use my car. This is and just like in that area, you can walk everywhere. It's totally wheelchair accessible. So anybody could come and get anyone and help them. And I'm sure the Seroptimists are the type of, and Rotary and Kiwanis and everybody else are the kinds of wonderful people in our community that step up to the plate and assist. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you so much for taking the time to call in and bearing with the technology. We heard you very clearly, and you don't have any questions from council, but really appreciate you making the time to phone in.
Thank you. Thank you for your tolerance and patience.
Absolutely. You did great. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Council speaker number 16 is Derek Milne. Do we have speaker 16, Derek Milne, on the line?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
We can hear you. Yep. You have up to 5 minutes, and you can go ahead whenever you're ready.
Thank you. Yes, my name is Derek Milne, and I live in Kitsilano. And I've been aware of this project for about a year. I've looked at some of the slides, and as much as I do have sympathy for the people who are concerned about the shadows of the building and, the parking, I've had an experience recently which I'd like to just bring everyone's attention because it comes back to the compassionate aspect of this. And what I think it involves is that it's very difficult. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Can you hear
Absolutely.
me?
Yes.
Yeah. So as I was mentioning, I was helping a friend who uses a walker who was trying to find an apartment. She's retired and she had to get out of her house because the cockroaches were so bad. And quite frankly, as I started taking her around, I couldn't believe the difficulty she had accessing so many buildings, even with one or two steps. And then I saw her put in these rent applications, and it was like amazing. The costs like $1,600, $1,800. She's looking at most of her pension check just going into rent. And even then, when I looked at that, she couldn't compete because even then she's competing with a whole world of people who want to come to Vancouver. And then I realized that this world does not care. She could just as easily be living in a cardboard box in the downtown east for what anybody would care. There's just like no other place for her as she wants to get away from her her insect-infested apartment. And then I had this other experience where I had my own daughter who had a disability. I tried to find her places to live here in the city. And similarly, with her cerebral palsy, she did not look like an attractive individual, and she could not compete for housing. And again, I think she got a room at one point for almost $1,000 a month. I remember her boyfriend at the time helped her. And it was amazing. They would actually take the fridge and stove out of the hallway because it was kind of stuck in a hallway whenever an inspector would come over, so it didn't look like it was an illegal suite, which really it was. And the amount of abuse that people are going through to just try to have a place to live. I really think it's important for us to recognize the amount of human suffering that's attached to this. So 135 units is 135 lives that are going to have a lot higher quality. whether it be single mothers, whether it be seniors, or whether it be people with disabilities. They can't compete in today's world. We really do need to help them. And therefore, I'm in support of this project, and basically that's my comments for today. Thank you.
Thank you for making the time to call in and speak. I don't see any questions from council, but really appreciate your clear communication of your points.
Thank you.
That is the end of the speakers list that I have. I'm going to call 3 times for additional speakers. So if there are any additional speakers for this item who wish to speak to council, please call toll-free 1-833-353-8610, followed by participant code 1061445 pound. The phone number will be tweeted out and made available on the live stream too. That was my second call. I'm going to call one more time, and then we'll take a 5-minute break just to see if anyone has called in. So before I make the third call, Clerk, do we have any additional speakers on the line?
No additional speakers, Chair.
Okay, and this is my third call for speakers. If there are any additional speakers for this item who wish to speak to council, please call toll-free 1-833-353-8610, followed by participant code 1061445 pound. And again, the phone number is tweeted out and available on the live stream. And it is 8:19. So council, we will take a 5-minute recess for any additional callers to call in, and we will restart the meeting at 8:24. it is 8:24, and I understand we have one more speaker.
Chair, sorry to interrupt. We don't seem to have quorum yet.
Oh, sorry. Thanks. Thanks for reminding me of that. Let's just wait until we have quorum.
Quorum.
Looks like we have quorum now, clerk.
Correct.
Okay, great. And I understand we have two more speakers on the line. Speaker number 17 is Nadine Clark. Nadine Clark, are you on the line?
Hi there, I'm on the line. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, and you have up to 5 minutes to speak to council. You can start whenever you're ready.
Perfect, thank you. So yeah, my name is Nadine. I'm extremely fortunate to be a homeowner in Vancouver. I also work for an architecture firm that completed a 14-story development under Vancouver's Rental 100 program a few years ago. So I'm familiar with the unique challenges that these kind of projects can face. For our project, even at 14 stories, we found that the building we designed needed to be pushed right out to the lot lines of the site in order to make it economically viable. I guess especially to make it economically viable as a 100% rental building. I heard a lot of speakers earlier this evening who were asking for reduced height and massing for this project, but my understanding is that it already requires a pretty significant subsidy at its current size. And so what that would likely mean is that reducing the number of units at all could make the project no longer financially viable at all. On a personal note, I actually also found it very hard to listen to those requests because, I'd like to remind everyone that when we're talking about reducing the scale of a building, it sounds very conceptual, but what we're actually talking about is reducing the number of people who are able to live in it. And I find it very hard to picture, looking at a senior woman or a single mother in the face and telling her that I thought it was more important to get some early morning sunlight on my balcony than, for her and her children to have a safe and affordable place to live. I live just a few blocks away from the downtown east side, and so, I see every day what the alternative is to safe housing, and I guess I would encourage, anyone to come take a look down here and just, see how horrible it can be for women, especially in this city. There are a couple of other things that some of the speakers said that I would just like to reemphasize. One of those is that this project is just a few blocks away from the Broadway City Hall SkyTrain station. That's already a major transportation nexus, and it's about to become even more central with the Broadway Corridor line extension. The building is also just a few blocks away from grocery stores, from Vancouver General Hospital, and a number of other services, including car share programs. So I personally think it would be very easy for residents to live in that area without the need for a car. Additionally, I did already know this, but just to bring it up again, since it is that close to Broadway, this is a building that's right within the Broadway Corridor Plan, which is an area that is going to see a significant amount of development in the next few years. So I know we've been talking about the current context of the site, but I think we also need to look at what the context will be a few years from now or 10 years from now, which is, that there will be a significant amount of development. There will be much taller buildings in that area, and I think that this project fits right in with it. So I guess, to summarize, because I realized I didn't say this at the beginning, I fully support this project in its current form, and I would be happy to support it at a larger scale as well.
Thank you so much for making the time to call in. I don't see any questions from council for you. You communicated very clearly. So thank you for phoning in. Speaker 18 is Suzanne McManus. Suzanne McManus,
hello.
Do we have? Yes, hello, we can hear you. You have up to 5 minutes. Go ahead whenever you're ready.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Thank you for your time today as well. I appreciate hearing all of the opinions about this project tonight. I did a bit of reading. I am a resident of 555 West 14th. And I do agree with a lot of those opposed to the project. only because of the size and its encroachment upon our property. So I understand that aspect of things. I feel very strongly about having social housing for women, affordable housing, especially for senior women. I have members of my own family that are female and have mobility issues and are seniors who've had issues. My aunt had issues finding affordable housing last summer and had to live in a very, very small apartment until one of her children could help her out. So I totally get it. I think the thing I wanted to stress when I was kind of reading through this, and maybe I don't understand the process, but I've heard a few people comment 135 units, 135 units. It's not 135 units for people who need them. It's a 30%, from what I can see, it's 30%. So 20 of the units have been set aside for the current residents in the building beside us, and then there's only leaving 21 for new social housing units. So I feel like that's not enough for a scope and size of a building like this. I would be so happy to hear that they could do more for women. So it's a little disappointing and a little bit, I find, misleading to talk about the scope of this as being, I think it could be better in that sense. Also, I'm concerned about the residents beside us. They're rehousing while this project happens. I really hope to hear updates on how they are transported, how they have housing in the interim until they have new housing. That's really concerning for me because it's very stressful to move. I know because I have elderly parents considering moving right now, and it's just the discussion of it's very difficult. So that's really all I had to say. It's a really personal thing for a lot of us in the community. All of the pros and cons, I'm sort of on both sides of it. So, I can see that and it doesn't sit well with me right now. And I'll be honest on that. The project does not sit well with me for a lot of the reasons where the opposition has come up. And I hope there's a way that it can be completed to keep the best interests of everybody in the community. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And if you don't mind staying on the line, you have questions from Councillor Carr. Councillor Carr, I'll advance you now.
Thank you. Thanks very much. I really appreciate you calling in. And so I was just interested in your comment about how you believe the affordability level won't be there. I don't know if you listened at the very beginning of this item on our public hearing agenda, but there was an explanation that unlike many of the social housing development projects that occur within the city where the social housing might just only require 30% of homes at housing income limits. This one, they explained at the beginning, has 20% of the units at deep subsidy at rents from $375 to $650. And in addition to that, another 50% at the housing income limits, which is 70% of the units in a much more subsidized and aimed at lower income residents. Did you manage to catch that?
I didn't know.
Yeah. Well, hopefully, I know that you've raised that as one of your primary concerns, but I'm hopeful that that information might be important to you. So thanks for
it. Is. Yeah. Thank you very much. Yep, absolutely.
Great, thank you. And thank you for taking the time to call in. Really appreciate it.
Thanks.
Great, those are all of your questions from council. So I'll just echo thanks for making the time to phone in this evening. I understand we may have two more speakers on the line. Speaker number 19.
Hello.
Identify speaker number 19. Could you state your name and whether you live in Vancouver, and then you'll have up to 5 minutes to speak to council.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hi, my name is Julian. I live in 555 West 14th, and I'm calling to restate that we are in favor of social housing, and we are pro. I myself, I am a woman. I'm an immigrant. I had a lot of challenges with my upbringing and went through poverty, and I fully support this project. we do oppose, and I want to reinstate that to be clear, that we do oppose only to the size and the density of this property. We do understand there is a big need for social housing, but it is not fair to also cram all these people in this small site. I do not want to disregard the comments from all the residents of Fairview that do not live near the building, but it's certainly easier to support the size of this project and it will not affect their daily lives, will not affect their daily lives. It's not about, again, not having our sunlight in our balconies, and we are not selfish people. We do support it. We are pro the social housing. It is about having this massive project crowding the neighborhood and invading our privacy, which we do as residents of Vancouver have the right to. It is a bylaw, and it will affect the privacy of the residents of the other building too. I just wanted to reinstate that and thank you for the opportunity of speaking. I can conclude my
Sure.
my speech.
Thank you so much for making the time to phone in. You don't have any questions from council, but you communicated very clearly. So thank you for making the time. I understand we have one more speaker on the line, speaker number 20.
Hello, I believe that might be me. My name is Anne.
Great. And if you could let us know your full name and whether you are a resident of Vancouver, and then you have up to 5 minutes to speak to council on this item.
Thank you, and thank you for all of the time that's been given to this. My name is Anne Way, and I live directly next door in 555 West 14th. I live less than 10 feet from the edge of this property. And I just want to reiterate, really, Julianne just really took the words out of my mouth. I want to say that I'm a woman, I'm a working woman, I'm approaching retirement. I work as a nurse, and I work very directly with women in the downtown east side. I work with people living and dying in SROs, single room occupancies. So I absolutely know the dire need for a project such as this. And what I would like to just, as it were, reiterate, it's already been said, this is absolutely a needed project. And I know from talking to some of my neighbors that nobody opposes the project. We're just asking for some consideration. Much earlier, somebody, one of the councillors, I'm sorry, I forget your name, asked if we felt that there had been, a participant, if they felt there had been sufficient consultation. And I want to say that I wasn't aware of any consultation from the applicant, only from the city in this process that we're in now. So I had no idea that this was happening until the city put their sign up. I had no idea. And I literally abut onto this project, and I'm happy to see. I like it multi-generational. It's for women. It's by women. I can't cheer it on more. I just am asking for some consideration for the size of the footprint. The building actually arcs out. I won't say mushrooms because that sounds a little excessive, but it arcs out as it goes higher. And I think somebody earlier said, just boo-hoo for those who have a shadow and don't get morning light. I think it's more than that we're asking for. We're asking for just some consideration for the impact on the building next door, and that is us. We are 50%, and the other 50% is one building and then the road in front. So we cover a lot of the space that's abutted by this building, and I just would like some consideration for how closely it comes to the edge of the property, considering that our property is immediately there, that my windows are right there, and it's about light, it's about property, but it's also about the neighborhood. I'm thrilled that we've got social housing going on. I've been thrilled to be living next door to the women, helping them shovel out their cars when it's snowy and so on. We have interacted with these folks and are happy to have them there, and I'd be the same for other occupants. I just would like some consideration for the impact on our 3-story building by a 13-story building that comes very close to the edge of the property. Thank you for listening, and thank you for all of you who are championing this I can't say the word properly, but championing it because it's a good project. It's just a little large, and it doesn't fit neatly into the neighborhood as all the marketing is saying. Like somebody said earlier, our building is whited out on the pictures. So thank you for your time and for your consideration.
Thank you so much for making the time to phone in this evening. You don't have any questions from council, but really appreciate your time and your words on this item. Clerk, do we have any other speakers on the line for this item?
No additional speakers, Chair.
Okay, thank you for that. So having called 3 times for additional speakers and seeing there are no additional speakers, the speakers list is now closed. And as few or no public comments were received on this item after 5 p.m. today, I suggest we now close the receipt of public comments and move on to hearing closing comments, asking further questions of staff, and to make a decision. Does the applicant have any closing comments?
Hi there, it's Carla Guerrera. I think just to reiterate that this project is 100% affordable housing. There are no market rents in this project. So it is 100% affordable housing at different levels of affordability. And this project, does require a $20 million, even with the rents as we have them at 3 different levels of affordability, it still does require a $20 million subsidy with 135 units to make this project viable and work on the site. So I just want to leave that as a closing comment because we are working with the view cone restriction and trying to make this project, viable and work at the height and density that it's at has been no easy task.
Thank you. Thank you so much for those closing words. Do staff have any closing comments?
Thanks. No closing comments.
Okay, thanks, staff. And I see a number of councillors on the list. I assume that is for questions for staff. So I will advance you first, Councillor DiGenova.
Thanks very much. I had heard the applicant say, I didn't manage to get this in my questions before, Chair, but I'm just wondering if staff could respond to the applicant's statement that staff had offered them a CHIP grant. I understand that the Community Housing Incentive Program grants are approved by council, so I'm not sure how it could, I understand if the words maybe were recommended, but I'm also wondering if there's funding from BC Housing and CMHC, would this still be recommended? Is staff definitely recommending this? Is this project hinging on that money?
Hello, it's Annie Mobless, Senior Housing Planner. The way that the CHIP grants work is that their applicants apply, and then there's preliminary approval, but you're correct in that those applications do come forward to council for final approval. It is a grant program that's administered through ACCS, so I don't have the details regarding whether or not this project did apply for the CHIP funding program, but typically the CHIP funded projects also are projects that are funded through BC Housing, and the CHIP funding is meant to deepen the levels of affordability over and above what's provided through BC Housing. So again, I could follow up to see whether or not this project is part of that application process with staff in ACCS, if that's of interest.
Thanks. I'd really appreciate having that information. Also, in asking the applicant, I know I can't ask the applicant any more questions at this point, but perhaps staff could help to provide some information on whether or not there is an expectation of a deepening affordability over time as the project becomes financially more viable. For a lot of projects that have a non-profit operator, or I suppose it might be operators if the TIRA is involved in this case, as was suggested they may be. If we would possibly see that tied to the, section 219 covenant in a housing agreement, that there would have to be deeper affordability as this building and its financial situation became economically more viable?
Thank you for the question. It's Annie Mobiles again, Senior Housing Planner. We typically secure the city's minimum definition of affordability, but we also know that nonprofits through their work do facilitate deeper levels of affordability, as you've mentioned, as the projects begin to bring down their debt effectively, much like if you have a single family home and you bring down your mortgage, you have more money to play with, and they do drive that funding back into reducing the rents, or sometimes providing more units at deeper levels of affordability than was previously secured. But we don't typically go back and adjust the housing agreement at the I always say that these projects are often the most expensive the first day they open, and then that affordability is deepened over time. So it's most challenging when it's new, as the applicants articulated, really difficult to pencil these projects. So the housing agreement is the rents that the city requires as a minimum. So yeah, we don't go back and adjust those over time. As far
as it gets more expensive when they're really, really old and there's more maintenance that needs to be done.
That's right. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sorry to cut you off, Annie. I just have one more question, and it's about setbacks. And I'm looking at on page 2, one of the questions asked by Councillor, DCL waivers here. I see the list of policies. Is there anything to say that this is getting exemption that we haven't considered before under our policy for other similar projects, understanding we have to view just this versus policy in a quasi-judicial hearing for the setback piece?
Just 30 seconds.
Thank you for the question, Councillor DiGenova. To clarify, it's Senior Development Planner Kevin Spans here. Are you asking about setbacks, or are you asking about?
There were a number of speakers that made statements saying that the setbacks here were not met to policy, and I'm just wondering if you could elaborate as to whether or not this is grossly over what we've allowed with other projects. Thank you.
Yeah, I will note that, and I'll try to be brief. Existing RM3 district schedule has very, very little discretion in it about setbacks. This building does go beyond the rear yard and side yard setbacks. So the rear yard being 35 feet in existing zoning and the proposal being 19 feet. And the side yard, I'm sorry, I don't have that, the requirement in mind, but the proposal is 21 feet. Those are beyond what is expected in RM3 zoning, but I will note that RM3 zoning is a highly non-discretionary zone, and there are no design guidelines to facilitate discretion.
I'm over time, so I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that answer, staff. And next up is Councillor Hardwick.
Thank you. My questions will be to staff, although I'm hoping through them to get some insight from the applicant. The residents that have talked to us today have asked about consideration. And so my first question is, was there consideration given at one point to developing within the existing zoning? Yes or no?
Thank you for the question, Councillor Hardwick. It's once again Senior Development Planner Kevin Spans here. Looking at the existing RM3 district schedule, and I will do my best to speak for the applicant here. Following the RM3 district schedule by the book, which permits on this site 1.11 FSR, and then following the side yard and rear yard setback requirements, the development would be either a 2,700 square foot floor plate building at 6 stories, or a 1,350 square foot building at up to 12 stories, which would effectively be a high-end strata building supportable at this site. So, without being able to speak for the applicant, I would assume a low viability for social housing development.
Okay,
in
I
that.
wasn't really talking about the tenure. I was really talking about height and mass. Putting the the tenure aside. That's not really material. So the massing height and setbacks here, again, we've got neighbors that are asking for consideration. What I really want to know is what consideration has been taken. I know that we want to create as many units as possible, but we don't want to alienate everybody that lives around there. So what has been done to take them into consideration?
Absolutely, and thank you for the question. One of the things that we look really closely at in any development is contextual fit, and we absolutely have heard the concern from the neighbors. It's kind of a unique situation because the existing building 555 West 14th, adjacent to this site, wraps the site on two sides, we considered in terms of the setbacks of the proposal, not just the setbacks but the height itself, and really considered potential impacts to privacy, privacy, shadowing, etc., and determined that even with additional setbacks, any development on the site that met zoning would have the same commensurate impact in terms of shadowing on the the northwest wing of 555 West 14th at 10 a.m. on spring, fall, and summer solstices. I'll note, and without going through the time of bringing up the backup slides, but we're happy to do that, the shadow is off the building by noon in the summer and just shortly after noon on spring and fall.
So what you're saying is that even within the existing zoning, it would have had impacts, particularly on shadowing on the adjacent buildings.
Anything over 2 stories in height would have had a commensurate shadow impact on the adjacent building.
Okay, I think it's important for the residents to understand that. So what you're saying then, the extent to which there's additional shadowing, it would not be as significant given the difference between the existing zoning and the proposed rezoning.
That's a little harder to answer, but imagining a situation where we built up to the existing zoning height, which is roughly 11 stories on the site, we could have had a building with the same length, but the breadth of the shadow, because of the orientation of the site, would not have been significantly different. So really it would have been a question of shadow length and not breadth. And since this building is directly adjacent the site, the shadow impacting 555 West 14th would have been the same, no matter the height.
We did hear from an architectural technologist who had been doing some modeling. I hope that you'll be able to have a look at that. Is there any opportunity going forward, and I'm out of time, but I hope it'll stick with you and the applicant to ameliorate anything on the massing and the setbacks?
Yep, definitely. This project will be going through the development permit process, and I will note that we've prepared a design development condition to at least soften the interface with the adjacent building in consideration of the neighboring building. It won't impact mass too much, but it's something that we can work with the applicant on.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Hardwick. Thank you, staff. Next up is questions from Councillor Kirby-Yung.
Yeah, thanks. I will be briefer because Councillor Hardwick asked my question, which is really focused on respecting the feedback from residents. And I'm just reflecting back that what I heard is development on this site, even within existing zoning, would have impacts inevitably over an existing or a 2-story with respect to privacy and shadowing. So I'm reflecting that back to you. Did I heard that correctly? Yes.
Thank you for the question, Councillor Kirby-Yung. That's correct. Now, in terms of privacy, it may not be the case because we would be talking about a significantly smaller building, a smaller footprint building that's further away. But in terms of height and shadow impacts, it would be approximately the same.
Okay, so since my other questions were asked, can I just ask you to just build a bit upon that last point that was in response to Councillor Hardwick's question with respect to the DP process, and you indicated there's a condition to soften the interface with the existing building. Can you help explain for residents and immediate neighbors what that might mean in terms of what the interface means and what sort of measures or form that might take to achieve that?
Thank you for the question, Councillor Kirby-Yung. This is a kind of a multifaceted approach. One thing that we'll be looking into in greater depth at the DP stage is unit layout to ensure that there are no conflicts that may result. When I say conflicts, I mean overview from one site to another that may result in privacy concerns. In terms of softening, staff note that there's a little bit of a hard edge with the parking access up against 555 West 14th. On the west side of the site. So we're looking for additional landscaping, screening, softening at the site level to improve that relationship.
And for people that may not be as familiar with the public hearing process, we heard from some speakers tonight, they called in. When a condition is put in with that respect, it is expected that the applicant will meet that condition. That is a requirement when it's actually stipulated as a condition. Is that correct? It's not a, well, if you could, or nice to do, or please try, like it's a requirement. Is that right?
It is a requirement, and even in the instances where we use the term, maybe a softer language such as exploration or consideration, that still obligates the applicant to demonstrate to us that it was explored or was considered, and for whatever reason it introduced a hardship to the development. So yes, it effectively, yes.
Okay, that's helpful. I will leave it there. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Kirby-Yung. And next up for questions to staff is Councillor Swanson.
Yeah, thanks. I should have asked this to the applicant, but I didn't. So I'm going to ask staff, have you had any conversations with the applicant about whether this would be a pet-friendly building?
Thanks. This is Marcel Jeline, rezoning planner. The applicant has indicated that they're still exploring this option at this time.
Okay, it would be so good if it would be pet friendly. I know some seniors who were recently evicted through no part of their own and had to give up their cats, and it's really, really hard on people to not have pets when they're used to them.
Just a reminder, Councillor Swanson, that this is questions and we'll have time for comments when the recommendation gets moved.
Okay, that's it.
Thank you. And next up for questions is Councillor DiGenova.
I had no more questions. I saw no one else on the queue, and I wondered if this would be the right time to move a motion. Chair?
This is the right time, yes. So without further questions to staff on the list, Councillor DiGenova is moving the staff recommendation.
Second, Councillor Kirby-Yung.
And seconded by Councillor Kirby-Yung. Thank you, Council. Are there any comments or debate? Councillor DiGenova, you have the floor. Do you have comments?
It's fine. I'll hold it for now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Hardwick, you are up next.
Thank you. Well, this one is a real tough one for me. I support, as one of the speakers said, I wrote this down, I support the moral mandate. I was a single mother of 2 daughters from kindergarten to grade 12. I also was on the receiving end of gender-based violence. I can appreciate the need for homes that are affordable for single mothers in particular, having that life experience. And along the spectrum, I certainly appreciate the difficulties for senior women. And there's just so many pluses for me in providing this housing. It's so important. I've heard the concerns of the residents, and I am hopeful that that there can be some tweaking done at the DP stage to ameliorate some of their concerns. But ultimately, when we went through the presentation, again, the presentation referred to the Housing Vancouver strategy as a precedent and justification. And ultimately, this is why I'm going to have to abstain again on this particular application. I've frequently and repeatedly questioned the veracity of the Housing Vancouver strategy on which these applications are based. And I will keep questioning that until staff provides us with the data that was requested and should have been provided by the end of July last year. So I will abstain. That will, under the rules of the Vancouver Charter, that will just count as a vote in support. But I feel compelled to continue to state my concerns about this as we go forward. Every decision that we're making that is based on erroneous underlying assumptions is put into question. But on the merits, again, of supporting the moral mandate, at that level, I do support this application. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hardwick. Councillor DiGenova, you are up next.
Thanks very much. I just wanted to take a moment to thank all of the speakers who called in, first of all, but also to thank the applicant. I understand from the many speakers, some who are involved with your nonprofit organization, that it's been many, many, many years. There's obviously been a lot of time that's been put into this, a lot of love that's been put into this from what I've heard, and a lot of effort. And it's all rooted in a cause and your mandate. And I heard that loud and clear from one of the speakers talking about empowered women can empower other women. And I think that that's a really important consideration. We often look at supporting nonprofits and how can we, especially in a city that's so unaffordable. We constantly rank as one of the least affordable cities in the world to live in, Vancouver. And I think that looking at women who come from many different walks of life, but who need that support, who need that affordable housing, and who want to be a part of a community like the one outlined here is so important. So I really do want to thank you for all that you're doing, all that you've done, and all that you will do. I will support the staff recommendations and was happy to move the motion because I think that there is a way forward here. And I haven't heard from the applicant that they're not willing to work with residents or neighbors. In fact, I even heard the neighbors and residents, some of them who called in to speak, perhaps not in support of this specific project or the renderings, or they had certain concerns. I heard you, but I also heard that you enjoy helping your neighbors, that you haven't had an issue or you chose to live next to these people in this building, many of whom may not move back, but some of whom will. But it will be under the same management in a sense, maybe with co-management by a tier or another nonprofit, and empowering more people to live in a more affordable environment in Vancouver. Looking at, the second page of the referral report again, and the council authority and previous decisions that guide us in this, because we are a quasi-judicial body, and that's how we have to view and judge these projects. It wouldn't be fair not to. Wouldn't be fair to tell people, these are the rules, this is what you have to play by, and then here, if they meet those rules, to not consider that. So there are 13 that I read listed here, everything from affordable housing policies all the way to green building policies for rezoning, and to the DCL bylaw waiver, and public art policy. So I mean, there's more and more and more, but I do think it's so important that we do try and empower and support people who can't afford to live in the city, and help nonprofits to make their pro formas work. And I'm really encouraged to hear that this nonprofit has left, from what I hear, nothing on the table, working with BC Housing, working with CMHC, really going above and beyond and working with our staff. Maybe there'll be a recommendation coming forward to us with a CHIP grant. It was interesting to find out about that tonight and learn more about it. But certainly, those are the reasons that I support this project. It's not lost on me, those who called in, who had concerns, and definitely noted your concerns. But I think that it is really, for us here at council, it's about looking at the benefit of this versus the concerns and the fairness when it comes down to policy. And for those reasons, I'm choosing to support this project.
Thank you, Councillor Dejanova. I'll just note I forgot to start your timer, but
I was timing myself here on
staying
my
within the
phone.
5 minutes. Thanks so much. Councillor Kirby-Yung, you are up next.
Yeah, thanks. I'll try to be brief because I know we have another item to get through, but I did just want to comment briefly and was sort of struck by the speaker, is the applicant, Mr. Optimist, that said it means sort of for people to be their best, and the mandate of by women and for women. And I don't think anybody knows better what women need than women. So it is a really refreshing project to come forward in that perspective. I did really appreciate hearing from the speakers and the residents with respect to concerns and change in your neighborhood. And I recognize that change has impacts. I'm hopeful that some of the clarifying questions that Council asked indicated that there are going to be some of these impacts with redevelopment, regardless of whether it stayed sort of within, sort of the full letter of the existing zoning, or there's a slight variation with respect to either height or setback. And that was articulated, but it's also very helpful for council and staff to hear the comments of residents so that, as was mentioned earlier, those can be addressed in the DP process. And we heard that that's a condition that has been embedded in this report, and some specific examples that might work to address those concerns of neighbors with respect to unit locations overview and landscaping or screening, for example. I do want to note that I think what is really unique about this project compared to, again, and I recognize it's confusing when the city says social housing and it's the statutory definition that we have to deal with that does only require 30% of units typically being below market, and the others might be market rental. That's not, and so that can be confusing. People acknowledge that, but that's actually not what this project is. This one is unique in the fact that it is a highly affordable project with everything sitting below market, and we don't see that very often. It's very different, or difficult, I should say, with land economics now and redevelopment costs to make that work. And so I think that needs to be noted and lauded, actually, in terms of the deep level of affordability that's being striven for, and I think will be achieved on the site with the vision and all the partners that have kind of brought to bear. It is sort of light and bright. I think that's helpful. That will help with the neighbors too, but also really like the intergenerational aspect of supporting people to come together and what will build, I think, a community from seniors who often can be isolated to single moms, as well as working women. It's increasingly difficult. We know that typically women are paid more, and they're the ones that we've seen during the pandemic. COVID has laid that bare, that are typically most impacted when we have significant events such as that. So all that to be said, and to be brief, for those reasons, I will support the project. And I do acknowledge and appreciate the speakers, and I'm looking forward to some of those concerns being addressed in the DP process. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kirby-Yung. Sorry, there are raccoons in the background here. Apologize for that background noise. I don't see any more councillors on the speakers list, so I'm going to ask the clerk to move us to a vote. Councillor Wiebe. Okay, thank you, Council. That is unanimous. And so we will move along. We will move along to item number 3 on the agenda for the evening. Item 3 is CD1 rezoning at 2929 Commercial Drive. And I'll start by asking, does any member of council wish to declare conflict of interest on item number 3? Seeing no one on the list, I'll now ask that the clerk read the application and summary of correspondence received.
This is an application by DYS Architecture to rezone 2929 Commercial Drive from C2C1 Commercial District to CD1 Comprehensive Development District to permit the development of a 5-story mixed-use building with a rooftop amenity floor containing 27 social housing units, a height of 19.25 meters, and a floor space ratio of 2.67 are proposed. The General Manager of Planning, Urban Design, and Sustainability recommends approval, subject to conditions set out in the summary and recommendation of the public hearing agenda. The following correspondence has been received since referral to public hearing and prior to the close of the speakers list and receipt of public comments. 2 pieces of correspondence in support, 1 piece of correspondence in opposition, and 1 piece of correspondence dealing with other aspects of the application. This represents all correspondence received up to 5 p.m. today.
Thank you. Thank you very much. If there are any speakers for this item who wish to speak to council, please call toll-free 1-833-353-8610, followed by participant code 1061445# before the close of the speakers list. The phone number will be tweeted out and made available on the live stream as well. And we have Chi Chan, rezoning planner from the Rezoning Center, Planning, Urban Design, and Sustainability, here to present the application.
Good evening, Chair and Council. My name is Chi Chan, rezoning planner for this application. Just before I continue, could I just ask the clerks to allow the planning department to share screen? The share screen button is currently grayed out for us.
Chair, that has been completed.
Okay, thank you. I would just like to confirm that you can see the presentation on the screen.
We can see the presentation on WebEx. I don't see it up yet on the, and it is now up on the public screen. Yes, so please go ahead.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Chair and Councillors. This application is being considered under the Kensington Cedar Cottage Community Division for the rezoning of 2929 Commercial Drive. So the site shown here in red at the center of the map is located at the southwest corner of Commercial Drive and East 13th Avenue, a 5-minute walk south of the Commercial Broadway SkyTrain station. This rectangular-shaped lot has a frontage of approximately 30 meters on Commercial Drive and 37 meters along East 13th Avenue, and a site area of approximately 1,100 square meters. The site is located in a C2C1 commercial district along Commercial Drive, which permits commercial, retail, service, and residential uses. Properties to the north, east, south are developed with 2 to 4-story mixed-use buildings, and properties to the west are zoned RT5, duplex and multiple dwelling district, and developed with single detached, duplex, and multiple dwelling houses. Here is an aerial photo of the site. Commercial Broadway SkyTrain station and Clark Park are visible at the top and bottom of this slide. This photo shows the existing site with a 3-story commercial building. The building is owned by and serves as the offices for the Vancouver Elementary School Teachers Association, or short form VESTA, and the Vancouver Secondary Teachers Association, or VSTA. VESTA and VSTA are non-profit local chapters of the British Columbia Teachers Federation. The associations represent their members, in other words, teachers, at the school district in discussions related to collective agreements, policies, and initiatives, and also provide professional development for its members. Other office and commercial tenants also lease space in the building. There are no residential dwelling units on this site. Neighborhood amenities include a range of parks and community spaces such as the John Hendry and Clark Parks, Trout Lake Community Center, and a number of schools and childcare centers within walking distance. The site falls within the catchment areas of Queen Alexandra Elementary School and the Vancouver Technical Secondary School, both with surplus spaces for additional students. The site is also well served by transit, being located directly on the 20 Victoria bus line, as well as a 5-minute walk to Commercial Broadway SkyTrain station. The 10th and Woodland bike routes are just also a block away. The project aligns with the goals of the Vancouver Housing Strategy, particularly towards the creation of 12,000 new social, supportive, and cooperative housing units by 2027. The site is located within the Kensington Cedar Cottage Community Vision, which enables rezonings for social housing. The site is also located in Protected Public View number 21, which protects views of the North Shore Mountains from Commercial Drive. This application proposes to rezone the site from C2C1 to CD1 to permit the development of a 5-story residential building with rooftop amenity floor, providing 27 social housing units. 22%, or 6 units, are suitable for families. While this family unit mix falls below the city's family room housing mix policy of 35%, VESTA and VSTA propose this unit mix to provide affordable rental housing to early career teachers. The proposed housing mix represents a balance between the needs and affordability levels identified by VESTA and VSTA members and is supported by staff. The application also provides VESTA and VSTA with new office space and expanded and enhanced meeting and training spaces for teachers on the 2nd floor. One commercial retail unit at the corner of East 13th and Commercial Drive is also included. On the 6th floor, an indoor amenity space is co-located with a large outdoor amenity deck and children's play area. The recommended density is 2.67 FSR, and the recommended height is 19.25 meters, 63 feet. This rezoning complies with the Protected Public View number 21, Commercial Drive. This application was received on November 30th, 2020, and was processed through the city's SHORT program. It has reached public hearing in just over 7.5 months. As part of the Restart Smart Vancouver initiative in response to COVID-19, this project will contribute approximately 100 new on-site and off-site construction jobs during the initiative's recovery phase. Here is a view of the backside of the proposal next to an RT5 duplex. On the 2nd floor, the building is set back 10 feet from the shared property line, where a small patio space is provided for the office and training uses. The upper 3 residential stories are set back 25 feet from the property line to reduce a sense of massing. The 3rd-story units are also provided with private outdoor decks with landscape planters along the edge to reduce overlook and provide screening for neighbors. The proposed building meets the city's definition of social housing, where, at a minimum, 30% of units are to be affordable to households with incomes equal to or less than Hills rates, which are $55,000 for a 1-bedroom unit to $67,500 for a 2-bedroom unit. These units must also be rented at rates no higher than 30% of the aggregate household income. A pre-application open house was held on December 11, 2019, which was attended by approximately 15 people. Following submission of a rezoning application on November 30th, 2020, the application drawings and details were made available online, along with my contact information and a form to easily submit feedback. A city-led virtual open house was held between January and February of 2021. In total, we received approximately 29 pieces of feedback. We heard a range of comments throughout the review of this application. Key themes of support included the provision of social housing, building design, proposed landscape screening, and the provision of office and training spaces for VESTA VSTA. Key themes of concern included parking, the location of social housing, and building design. Staff have reviewed the rezoning application and concluded that the proposed design, height, and density are appropriate and consistent with similar rental buildings on arterials across the city. Furthermore, the proposal meets the Kensington Cedar Cottage Community Vision intent of supporting social housing. The project will conform with the city's parking bylaw, and the site is close to major transit options, especially at the Commercial Broadway SkyTrain station, shopping, services, and parks. In summary, staff recommend approval of this application to rezone 2929 Commercial Drive from C2C1 to CD1, subject to the conditions outlined in Appendix B of the report, as it meets the intent of the Kensington Cedar Cottage Community Vision with respect to the delivery of social housing. If approved, the application would deliver 27 new social housing units towards achieving the housing goals identified in the Housing Vancouver strategy. It would also provide expanded and renewed office and training space for the Vancouver Elementary and Secondary School Teachers Associations. Thank you very much for listening. Staff and the applicant teams are available to take your questions.
Chair, you may be muted.
Oh my goodness. Thank you very much. It took me until 20 after 9 to make that error the first time. Thank you for that presentation, staff. Is the applicant team here, and do they wish to speak to the application?
Yes, I'm Dane Jansen with DYS Architecture. Thank you, Deputy Mayor and Council. We're going to hold, at least on the architectural presentation, but we'd be happy to answer questions. We have representatives who were actually over at my office and social distancing, but have other members of the steering committee representing the various associations. Alison Jabbour is going to speak on behalf of the teachers, just a few minutes, and then we can move on from there.
Okay, great. Go right ahead.
Thanks. Hi, my name is Alison Jabbour, and I'm a vice president of the Vancouver Elementary School Teachers Association and a resident of Vancouver. Thank you for allowing me time to speak to you on behalf of the approximately 3,500 teachers in Vancouver on the proposed rezoning of our development at 13th and Commercial. We are two union locals of the BCTF, the Vancouver Elementary School Teachers Association and the Vancouver Secondary Teachers Association, VESTA and VSTA. The two unions bought the property at 13th and Commercial in 1989 in order to house our union offices and to provide meeting space for the various committees that direct the work of our locals. About 10 years ago, the condition of the building had deteriorated to the point of requiring about $1.5 million in repairs if we were going to stay in the building. At the time, we hired a company to look at a variety of options for moving forward, and our members chose to go ahead with exploration of redevelopment of the building with offices, meeting space, retail, and rental housing. The hope was that we could continue to build upon the legacy that our predecessors had had the foresight to provide for teachers in our district. Over the past few years, we have had several setbacks, and it is only now that we have been able to come before you with a vision that will meet the needs of our members for years to come. We're very excited by the design that DYS has produced, as it will allow us to have safe and secure office space, as well as flexible and modern meeting spaces of a variety of sizes, so that we're able to provide our members with the services they require. The addition of rental housing will help in a small way with the housing challenges in Vancouver. The main difference between what we have now and our new proposal is the addition of rental social housing. Our members, like so many others these days, are finding it difficult to secure housing in Vancouver at a cost they can afford. In particular, our early career teachers often begin as precarious workers with no guaranteed income. These teachers on call provide an essential service to the teaching profession, filling in when teachers are ill, are doing union work, or are doing other professional activities on regular in-session days. Also, it takes Vancouver teachers 10 years to reach their top earning wage. Our members need access to reasonably priced housing to support them through those initial years of uncertain income and lower wages. We will have 30% of the rental units at or below Hills rates. The remainder will be at market rates to keep expenditures to a reasonable level for our members as they are funding the project. Future Vancouver teachers may wish to increase the number of units at Hills or below as the debt load for the project decreases. We are a socially minded organization and hope to provide workforce housing for our members, as well as meeting spaces for ourselves and for other organizations, as we do with our current space. We hope you will support this project. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much for your presentation. We will now move to questions from council for either staff or the applicant. And first up on the queue is Councillor Kirby-Yung.
Yeah, thank you. My questions are for the applicant, and I think fairly brief. So just confirming, housing for teachers, so not just the affordable units, but the other units as well, will be available specifically for teachers working in Vancouver. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. And do you envision that being, you mentioned in your remarks about the difficulty, especially for sort of early career teachers, do you envision that predominantly being new teachers that are coming into the system that you would be offering the housing to?
Yes, we do.
Okay. And then you touched on my other question is that you have to be mindful of your members' resources and sort of the operational costs, but you did allude to it. So you do see the opportunity to potentially deepen affordability over time. Like this is not necessarily, this could get better, I guess, in other words, in terms of the affordability levels.
That is also correct, yes.
And is that's, I'm guessing that that's probably your hope, but you're being prudent in the initial stages. Would that be a fair characterization of where you are?
Thank you.
Okay, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I'm just sort of trying to get a bit of a sense, right?
Yeah, it will be something that certainly, you know, future teachers will make the decisions around, but teachers are generally speaking very socially minded, and I would expect that they would vote in favor of doing that kind of thing, deepening the affordability.
Okay, did you have any discussion with this being any more than 5 stories?
Initially we did.
Yeah, there was, but I think she can probably speak to it more effectively.
I'm going to guess, was the view cone part of that discussion?
Did you want to take that?
Hello, this is Chi Chan, rezoning planner. Thank you for the question, Councillor. Yes, they are limited. This project and this site is limited by the view cone, which has resulted in the 5-story form. However, there is an outdoor amenity space on the 6th story, which is designed to be outside of that view cone, and that 6-story indoor amenity space, is located there such that it doesn't have to take units. It doesn't have to take a place of a housing unit within the residential floors. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. That's it for me. Thank you very much. Appreciate the response.
Thank you, Councillor Kirby-Yung. And next up is Councillor Dominato.
Thanks, Chair. And yeah, just a couple of questions. One is with respect to the view cone, and this could be either for the applicant or for our staff, is that due to the view cone there, how is that now limited what other opportunities were presented and were limited because of the view cone being in that place?
Well, as Chi has assisted us through this, he's probably more astute about it, but it means that the upper floor could only consist of the elevator, stairs, and the amenity space. We've looked at other opportunities with that, but just the display of the view cone, this is again, Chi can correct me, but it's a station point in the middle of Commercial Drive. I believe it's at 13th. And the descent of the land and the way the display works, it means only a portion of the floor, approximately about 35–40% of the floor, can be used for development.
Okay, thanks for clarifying that. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, Councillor Dominato, this is Chi Chan again. Sorry, could we have the clerks allow us to share a slide?
It's fine by me.
Clerks, yes. Can you, are you able to make that happen?
Can I ask my second question while we're waiting for the slide? And it's specific to the applicant, so I don't run out of time.
Go right ahead, Councillor Dominato.
Just to the applicant while we're waiting for the slide I'm curious in terms of, because the housing is to serve new teachers and is there a 10-year time frame considered as part of these homes? Is there a contemplation that they would be open to new teachers, but there might be an expectation that sort of people almost graduate out of there and to support new teachers coming into the system and into Vancouver? Or is it, what's contemplated? I'm just curious around that.
I think that that's something still to unfold, exactly how those agreements will work. And it'll be, as you can tell, a lot of the, this is iterative and it has to go back to the membership to sort out exactly. But, you know, the general intent, as you hear, is to facilitate housing for those new teachers new to the profession and so I think there's kind of an honor bound aspect to that as well, but we'll have to see how it evolves. It may be something that will get tweaked over time.
Okay, thank you. And I see the staff have brought the slide up. I'll have you, Cones.
Paul Chang, Senior Development Planner. We did want to show you the slide so that you could see the view in question. If your question is how much taller would this building have been permitted if we didn't have a view cone, I think the short answer generally would be only one more story. A 6-story building would be something that's appropriate for this part of Commercial Drive. It is a neighborhood shopping street, so we're not really yet considering large towers or anything more than a street wall of 6 stories for this kind of neighborhood shopping street. It reflects the kind of C2 buildings that we have, 6 stories for market rental that council has seen many times as well.
Okay, great. That answers my question. Thank you for that. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Dominato, and Councillor Swanson is up next.
Yep, this is for the applicant. Is this going to be a pet-friendly building?
Again, that's a question that we will be exploring in the future as we work on the details of exactly how the development is going to be used. Thanks.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Swanson. And seeing no more questions from council, I'm going to move us to the speakers list. First, I'll just remind anyone in the public listening, if there are additional speakers for this item who wish to speak to council, please call toll-free 1-833-353-8610, followed by participant code 106-1445# before the close of the speakers list. The phone number will be tweeted out and made available on the live stream. And we do have speakers, I understand, on the line. Speaker number 1 is Diego Pons. Do we have Diego Pons on the line?
Yes, I'm on the line right here.
Great. We can hear you. You have up to 5 minutes to speak to council, and you can go ahead whenever you're ready.
Thank you very much. To begin with, I would like to thank you for the space and openness to listen to public opinion for the development of high-impact works in this beautiful city. My name is Diego Pons. I am 37 years old, and I currently develop my day-to-day at the Mexican Consulate for British Columbia, Yukon, and the Northeast Territories. Likewise, I have the opportunity to represent a community of young people whose interest in the work of mayors and councilors around the world interest us and allow us to participate in many and different ways. In this way, by following the honorable work of the major and honorable councilors for several years, we want to recognize in every way all the hard work and invite you to continue being promoters of the well-being and progress of this beautiful city. The project, the CD 2929 Commercial Drive project, is just one example of many of how different cities in the world should use resources to optimize what we already have to make it better. We insist as a community involved in the development of this beautiful city that this honorable city council serve as safe conduct to multiply these works that enhance development in all senses. Likewise, invite neighboring cities to replicate this work and be able to generate synchrony, sustainability, and harmony. We pronounce ourselves in favor of this project, and we will remain attentive to its progress and development. Your work and daily love for this city is that Vancouver has earned a worldwide recognition. We are sure that this project will really help many people. We suggest and we invite all that we keep this community vision. We especially want to thank Councilor De Genova for all for her hard work and daily effort. Thank you to all our members, and this was my participation, but I just want to be grateful about all the work that you do daily. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Speaker. And I don't see any questions from Council, but you spoke very well and clearly, and we appreciate you making the time to speak to us this evening. Clerk,
Thank
do
you
we
very
have?
much.
Thank you. So I will make a second call for speakers. Clerk, do we have any other speakers on the line right now?
No additional speakers, Chair.
Okay, thank you. So I will make a third call for speakers, a third and final call. If there are any speakers for this item who wish to speak to council, please call toll-free 1-833-353-8610, followed by participant code 106-1445#. The phone number will also be tweeted out and available on the live stream.
Councillor Boyle, it's the clerk. Your video appeared to freeze. We didn't catch the last bit of what you said.
Okay, sorry about that. That was my third call, and it's 9:35 now. We'll come back at 9:40 to give 5 minutes for any additional speakers to phone in. Great, thank you very much, Clerk. So seeing there are no additional speakers, the speakers list is now closed, and as few or no public comments were received on this item after 5 p.m. tonight, I suggest we close the receipt of public comments and move on to hearing closing comments, asking further questions of staff, and making a decision. Does the applicant have any closing comments?
No further comments. We appreciate council's time in reviewing this, and certainly the planning department has been very helpful in moving this application through, in particular Chi Chan and Paul Chang. We'd like to extend our thanks to them.
Great, thank you so much for those comments. And do staff have any closing comments?
No further comments, thank you.
Thank you, staff. Council, we now have an opportunity to ask any more questions of staff, and I see a number of councillors on the list. I assume 4 questions. Councillor Kirby-Yung, I'll advance you first.
No, I was actually happy with the recommendation, so I'll just put myself at the end.
Okay, that might be the dance that's happening on the queue right now. Councillor Dominato, do you have questions for staff?
No, I was prepared to move the report.
Okay, and Councillor Swanson took her name off. So Councillor Kirby-Yung, I will advance you next, and perhaps Councillor Dominato wants to second, but I will leave that. So moved.
Yep. Happy to move the recommendations, Chair.
Great, thank you for that. And do we have a seconder?
Second, Councillor Dominato.
Great, thank you for that. And we'll move to debate. Councillor Kirby-Yung, I still have your name on the list. Do you have comments you'd like to make?
Very brief. It's a great project and it's a unique one. I think it's the first one we've had this council that has had teacher-specific housing, and it's nice to see sort of the sector taking care of its own, so to speak. And I recognize that rental housing is desperately in need, and it will be specifically for teachers, and I think that's a benefit. Currently starting off with 30% to be below market, but I'm encouraged and I think optimistic about the opportunity to deepen that affordability over time, given who is the proponents behind the project, being Vesta and the STA, and so I'm happy to support it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you for being brief, Council. It's 9:43. I will advance Councillor Dominato next.
Thanks, Chair. I'll take that as a subtle hint. Just to say as well in brief, happy to support this proposal. I know it's been a long time coming and really reflects some of the conversations we were having at VSB when I was serving on school board and around the need for workforce housing to accommodate some of our critical employers, and particularly teachers, and conversation centered around that and what we could do to lever existing school and maker school board lands, and in this case both the unions coming together to lever property they have, and to create an additional learning space and training space, as well as
unless more participants join,
teachers,
this
which I
conference
think
will
is
end.
fantastic, and that it will provide an opportunity for potentially, I heard, there'll be some conversations about how that's levered, particularly for new teachers and then teachers moving on. But I think it's well needed in the community, and we heard that when I served on school board, and so I'm really happy to see this come forward and come to fruition, and that it was able to go through the short program and to come through in 7 months. So happy to support this one. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dominato. Councillor Swanson, you are up next.
Yeah, so in spite of the fact that I was not able to extract a promise that this would be a pet-friendly building, I am really happy to support the project. I think any kind of social housing is good, and I think it's great that unions are doing this with land that they own. And it would be great to see more unions doing this. So yep, it seems like a really good project.
Thank you, Councillor Swanson, and also thank you for your brevity. Councillor Hardwick, you are up next.
Thank you. So I come from a long line of teachers and elementary teachers in particular. My grandfather was a principal in the Vancouver school system for 40 years as an elementary school principal. My grandmother was an elementary school teacher. My mother was an elementary school teacher. I greatly appreciate the thinking behind this application. And so on that level, I support it. I also have very tremendous respect for the architect on this project. All that said, the presentation from staff falls back on the Housing Vancouver strategy as a precedent and justification for approving this development. And for that reason, and for the reasons that I've stated multiple times before, I will be abstaining on this particular application as a result of what I believe to be fundamentally flawed policy, and will believe until staff provide the data, not findings, not memos, not reports, the underlying data on which our housing policies are based. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hardwick. Councillor Carr, you are up next.
Yes, thank you. I'm super happy to be supporting this, and I don't think this project is based on our general housing policies, I really believe that this is based on a desire of the two unions, the elementary and the secondary teachers associations, to look out for their own, to understand that in addition to the office space and the training space that they've got, that there is a desperate, incredible need for affordable housing to enable young teachers to get in, young people to get into the teachers' unions and profession, and we all should really appreciate that. So this is their initiative. It's a brilliant one, and thank you to them, and thank you to staff for moving this forward.
Thank you, Councillor Carr, and seeing no one else on the list, I will ask the clerk to move us to a vote.
Point of privilege. Chair, it's Councillor DiGenova.
Yes.
Could I get a vote assist in favor? I'm sorry, parenting responsibilities have taken me away from my WebEx.
Yes, no problem at all.
Thank you.
Oh, the clerk and I are trying to, great. And Councillor Bly, I'll just note, had to leave the meeting early for health reasons, so she is marked as absent. That passes unanimously, Council. Thank you, Council and staff, for that. We have finished the 3 items on our agenda this evening, so I will ask for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Councillor Hardwick, and do we have a seconder?
Second, Councillor DiGenova.
Thank you, Councillor DiGenova. All in favor?
Yay.
Yay. And any opposed? Okay, great. We are adjourned. Thank you again to staff and to all the speakers who joined us. That wraps up our evening.
Thank you, Chair. Good job.
Thanks, Chair. Nice job chairing.
Thank you, staff. Thanks, Council.
Have a good night, everybody.